the setting.
Want to sit down?
Yeah, well, it's gonna.
Me about Steven Crowder.
Restream. Oh wait, oh no, it's showing green now. Okay, maybe it is going. It's going.
We are
People
live.
were saying, you need to speak out for Steven Crowder. Candace, blink twice.
Thanks, Darren. How we all doing? Let's do this. So I'm going to start off with a little clip from, gotta make sure we got everything going here. Yep, we got so many indicators. We're going to start off with a little clip from Candace Owens because she summarizes, she has a couple of clips. I'm going to watch about 6 minutes of Candace Owens, then we're going to jump right into Steven Crowder and Tim Pool. Let's go. What Candace is talking about is she is showing the clips that kind of break down what Steven Crowder is talking about. Let's play. Let's roll.
So this was a very big story, and I got tons of tweets from people asking me about Steven Crowder. People were saying, you need to speak out for Steven Crowder. Candace, blink twice if you're under duress. All sorts of comments like that, and I had no idea what they were talking about. I obviously then went to Steven Crowder's YouTube page, and I saw a video that he had put up, and he was discussing a company who were essentially offering him what he thought amounted to a slave contract. And it was very heavily implied throughout that the company was the Daily Wire. He said it wasn't the Blaze. He said that there were ad reads, that the company offered him a lot of money, and that he wouldn't sell out. You know, it was this super, I'm a martyr and I'm not selling out to you. And the comments reflected that, yay, Steven, you're a hero. Before I even give you my feedback, let's just hear Steven in his own words.
Big tech is in bed with Big Con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. Don't sign these contracts. I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. You know, let me go through this. If any of the major platforms issues a content strike such that Crowder cannot be monetized on such platform, the fee will be reduced by 25%. And then another 20% of it happens on Apple. And then another 10% of it happens on Facebook. And then another 10% of it happens on Spotify. And then if you get a strike, meaning a suspension, another 20%. Just to drive it home, you get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day. This is what's sent out to everybody.
All right, so you get the gist of this.
Keep in mind, this is Candace Owens. She is employed by the Daily Wire. She is a cog in the system. Yeah, she's got her own podcast, kind of. But she's got a horse in this race. She really does. She's kind of defending the Daily Wire, and we're going to get into all of it. But remember, her standpoint is she is protecting her employer, which in turn protects her. Steven Crowder is basically saying a bunch of stuff. Let's keep going.
It is a super predatory contract. And like I said, he never explicitly said the Daily Wire, but it was very clear that he was talking about the Daily Wire because how many organizations do you know are big enough to offer him, Steven Crowder, you know, what he should or around the range of what he should be paid that does ad reads. Obviously, it's not going to be Fox News. It's not going to be PragerU, their 501c3, or Turning Point USA. And he mentioned explicitly that it wasn't the Blaze. So to me, it was sort of like he said, the Schmaley Schmeier, but I'm not naming any names. And I'm going to tell you two things that I thought. First and foremost, to give something a name like the Big Con, obviously, it was mudslinging. And if this was...
I thought the Big Con was kind of funny. I did. It's like the Big Con. Oh, did I mean conservative or did I mean con, as in con artist? Either one. Take your pick. But Candace, she felt, this is not good.
Was the Daily Wire, which I wasn't entirely sure that it was, but as I said, it was heavily implied. Then he also threw mud on me. He threw mud on Matt Walsh. He threw mud on Michael Knowles. He threw mud on every single person, Brett Cooper, that works for Daily Wire by implying that we are signing these contracts and he is heroic for not signing it. And pulling out excerpts of the contract to say, basically, we're beholden to big tech, right? And I don't like that. If you want to rev up your engine and fire up your big truck, don't get mud on my car, right? That's my thing. If you want to go to war, keep me out of it. At least say this was a contract that was offered to me. He kind of makes this plea. And again, people were just on board with it. But I will also be honest that I was a bit disturbed. Like I said, heavy accusations that this is how the contracts are being handled. This would mean and imply that I was working for an organization that is not acting in the capacity of what I would like, how I would like them to act, right? Or acting in good faith toward the talent, and it felt predatory. So the first thing that I did was I reached out to executives here and was like, what is this? Are you guys gonna respond to this? I wanna know whether or not you're actually treating people poorly behind the scenes, because it matters to me. It's always mattered to me, okay? You can speak to any organization that's ever worked with me. I have a very good reputation. I maintain friendships with everybody. I do. I don't personally know Steven Crowder. To be honest, the first time I ever had any correspondence with him, he was a bit of a dick to me. You can bleep that out, whatever. But he offered me online to come on the show. I said yes. And an hour later, he lied and said that I canceled, and I never did. And then he corrected it and said, oh, we got.
All right. So Candace got a little bit of an axe to grind, but those clips kind of show, the essence of what Steven Crowder's talking about. What is missing is all of the backstory context. And that's why I chose to play what we're going to see next, which is the Tim Pool podcast, because Tim Pool is an independent. He is not an employee of the Daily Wire. He's not an employee of anybody. He's running his own show. He understands the production costs. He understands that this is a business and they've got to make money to run a business. Candace Owens is insulated from all of that for the most part. That's as an employee of the Daily Wire and the way they have their contract structured from my perspective. I'm a real estate guy. I don't know anything about this media stuff except for, AdSense and ad dollars and, view times. I know a little bit. I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm also old enough to kind of have a perspective that these are all the big swinging dicks in conservative media, right? You've got them all coming together on this one, either, from the standpoint of sharing their opinions of what's going on. And I appreciate Tim Pool's independence. So let's go watch Tim Pool. All right. That's enough of Candace. Let's see what Tim Pool's got going on. The intro on this it's pretty entertaining. I find Tim Pool's transparency. He's like, making some mistakes. Which I do all the time. All right, let's get this going. Okay. Come on, guys.
Make sure the individuals are empowered and can maintain themselves through the issues of censorship and run their own companies after any contracts change. There's a lot of questions here, more than just that. And so joining us tonight to talk about all of this is, of course, we've got Steven Crowder.
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's a little roomy. Is there a way for me to adjust my headphones? No, I should have done it beforehand. I'm an idiot.
Actually,
yeah, we don't.
Helen can do it from his end.
The new studio has the modules where you can control, but we're.
I also got these armrests. I'm like hitting the table, so if I look like an idiot, it's probably.
You can lower the seat.
How do I do it?
On the right side, there's a lever.
This
yeah,
ahead of time.
It's the front lever of the two.
There you go. There you go. Now everyone's gonna think I'm super tiny.
Yeah, now you're short. I'll adjust your camera. But and also you brought your CEO, Gerald.
Gerald Morgan. Yeah, now officially. Just became CEO in the last couple of weeks there.
We'll have to adjust these cameras. So,
right,
Serge missed his flight, I guess. Is that what happened?
Yeah, sounds like it.
So we're completely just, Luke.
There you go.
All right, there we go.
Ian will get it.
I just split the difference. Is that okay? I just kind of went up. I don't think
they don't have their main.
No, he needs to turn it to the side.
Here.
Oh,
they're
okay.
winging everything.
So thanks for having. It's almost like one of those things where it's like when Santa met the M&Ms.
Yeah.
Seeing you in person, I was like,
well, they got rid of the M&Ms.
He does exist.
Oh, right, but they're gone.
No, they're
gone.
They have a lesbian M&M.
No, they got rid of it. It's Maya Rudolph now.
Just now.
Okay, we're going to talk about that, I suppose. But, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started.
It would make sense if she's a lesbian M&M that she was so fat.
That's fair.
Before we get started.
Because she's eating other female M&Ms. I'm not saying lesbians are fat.
Right.
Too much sugar.
Yeah.
Big bones eat each other.
She was big boned.
What is he
All right,
talking about?
let's do this. Before we get started, head over to
Tim's
timcast.com,
gonna
become a
plug his
member,
show.
support our work. As a member, you're helping us not just run the company, but also with our cultural endeavors and the weird things we do. We're opening a coffee shop. We're going to have physical locations. Of course, I did the weird skateboard thing where I got that company's logo they abandoned because they were woke. And we're going to do a lot of fun stuff. But as a member, you'll get access to uncensored members-only shows from this podcast, Timcast.rl, as well as Cast Castle, the vlog, Tales from the Inverted World. And we're going to have an uncensored members-only after this show as well, which will be up around 11 or so p.m. We record that after we wrap the live portion. So if you want to check out the uncensored version, go to timcast.com, become a member. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. And we also have Luke Rutkowski joining us today.
Hey guys, today I'm wearing my Make America Florida shirt, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com because
Good shirt.
I'm moving to Florida tomorrow. Sorry guys, but the Daily Wire gave me a deal I couldn't refuse.
really?
I'm
Good
leaving.
for you.
No, I'm joking. I'm kidding.
I thought you were going to say you moved to Arizona because Carrie Lake.
No. I'm fiercely independent. I just launched a new business called I'mTheRealOG.com. So if you're in Florida, want to link up with me and want to check out my new business, I'mTheRealOG.com. Check it out if you're a real OG.
I can't believe you got that domain.
I know.
You said it was $5. The Real OG?
The Real OG. No, I'm TheRealOG.com.
I'm surprised it's not a pot shop.
So if you guys aren't familiar with Tim Pool, Luke is often on Tim Pool, but he's kind of got his own channel and side. He's got his own main hustle as well, but Tim Pool brings him on all the time.
RealOG.com is like a spam website, so don't go on that one. It like hacks people's computers.
Oh my gosh.
Don't go on that one. I'm TheRealOG.com.
We got Ian hanging
So,
out.
by the way, can I say one thing, by the way?
Before we do, we should turn Steven's mic up a little bit.
Okay, I was
if
going to
you
say,
can.
because you're coming in a little bit hot in my ears. And
that's
when you were
one
saying
of
OG,
Tim's
which I'm really
main
happy to hear, but it was
sidekicks.
loud.
So do you want to maybe
Got it.
bring Steven's headset down a little and his mic
I
up a
apologize.
little?
And one
It
thing, I
looks
was
like
which
a
camera
nut
am I talking
job,
into
but
there?
every now and then
People
it
who are
has a
watching the live
word of
stream
wisdom.
on my YouTube channel or Rumble, it's only going to be the first 20 minutes. There's really no other way to reach you, like with a post, and then just head over. It's Timcast IRL, right?
YouTube.com/TimcastIRL.
Perfect.
So
And you can
all
add
of you
us-
head over there now if you can, but in 20 minutes, it's not going to be here.
Or Timcast.com. We just have it embedded on the front.
Oh,
so
awesome.
that's
Well,
easier.
I'm glad you guys are here. The drama, personal stuff, I'm not really interested in as much as the contracts themselves. I've been thinking about this since 2006, 7, 8. Like, I'm similar to you, Steven,
You
been making
helped
internet
create,
videos.
can I say,
Maker Studios,
Maker,
yeah. I was only verbally, we would hang out, me and Ben,
Drama and the
Donovan,
contracts,
and Dan Zapinski up in a hotel room talking about creating a union for web actors.
Right.
And it's evolved into now, it never really happened. And now I think there's a technical solution and we don't need to make paperwork necessarily. Because, I mean, I don't like trusting people with paperwork anyway, personally.
Yeah, I mean, my problem isn't so much with paper itself.
You don't like it?
No, my problem isn't so much with paper, but what
it's
it
what's printed
represents. Yeah, it's
on
what's
the
printed
paper.
on the paper.
Right.
Tends to be the issue.
No, but I remember I was with Maker, and then it kind of morphed into something where, the whole idea, right, was they were going to help protect you, get better advertising rates, and then, I said some things like, hey, we can't be repping you anymore. They turned into Studio something. I think they got purchased
Was
by
it Studio
Disney.
71?
Was that what it was? There were a couple of them, right, that were
Yeah.
out there. There was like Collab Studios. Was that
They're
one
going
that was
way
called? I don't know.
back in
We'll
the
get into
day.
all that. I want to make sure everybody knows Kellen's here.
What's up, everybody? It's Kellen filling in for Serge. Let's get started, guys.
Yeah, so Serge misses flight, I guess, but we're all here and we're stringing it together with duct tape.
This is
And,
fun.
Kellen's
One of the
not
biggest
duct tape.
podcasts ever.
No, he's good. Yeah, he's more like
Appreciate it.
How's that for throwing you under the bus right off the bat?
The way I knew that this podcast was happening is one of you guys put in the comments, you made some reference, and I was like, maybe I need to check that out. And I don't know how many views this podcast had, but at one point in time, I think it was like 145,000, 175,000, some just enormously huge number. I mean, like, competing with like a CNN for a show, right? I mean, just right in there. So whomever giving me the heads up here, thank you.
it's that metallic airline tape.
That's better.
Yeah, it's like people see it and they get scared it's duct
Telling
tape,
you
but don't
sack
worry.
of dog crap.
I'll take.
Your duct tape. You didn't even get double-sided,
Yeah.
bitch.
But I got
Dollar
the
store duct
fancy,
tape.
the fancy airline duct tape. I'll take it.
Reflective.
All right, let's
Kroger brand duct tape.
let's jump.
Equate. Go ahead.
Let's jump into this first story. We have this stopbigcon.com.
Yeah.
Louder with Crowder, Stop Big Con, Stay in Mug Club, or join a new. Enter your email below. So let's get started and talk about from the beginning. You, most people are familiar with the story.
Yeah.
I want to make sure as we get this started, I'll make this. I want to make sure there's important contextual understanding. People have asked why it's so important that, and why is everybody interested in the
Can
story?
you guys see
Why have we
Tim Pool
talked about
on
it so
the
much?
right-hand side?
First, I will
Is he
say,
visible on your
I'm
screen?
biased. I worked for big
Let me know in the
corporations.
comments.
I've run my own company. I have this passion for how the media companies operate, how I operate my media company, my vision for the future. And I know so much about this. It's something I care about. When I hear about it, I'm just driven to want to understand more, talk about it, share these ideas. But it's more than just that. I just want to make sure that my bias is clear. It's that I, for one, have taken issue with the establishment media the establishment, the traditional media systems, how they operate with contracts. And so trying to build something different, I see what Crowder announced and what he's talking about, and I ideologically agree. So this conversation could change the shape of how media moves forward as the corporate media system is dying, firing people, laying people off, and an independent ecosystem is emerging with these networks. Which form is it going to take? It could go completely corporate, it could go completely independent, it could be a mix of both. But this is a conversation that is extremely important moving forward. So we're hanging out with Steven Crowder and Gerald, of course, to talk about all this.
The business side more. I don't really take care of the finances as much. But
what's the story here? What's the story?
Well, first off, let me set something up off the bat. I want to make sure that everyone here knows. Like, I know that you guys have made very clear that you're monetized on YouTube because you believe that you can fight against big tech by sort of operating to some degree within the rules, but you've been very transparent about it. And so I don't want you to think that is at all the same as what I have a problem with. And I mean, we can go back to a few things. Look, it really comes down to what's right. It really comes down to what the truth is. And this is something that's been a long time coming. Gerald actually came on as CEO because we're being batted around so long. This is years and years in the making. I get the point with corporate media. The issue that I have with many in the conservative side of this sphere is the fundamental misleading and dishonesty. That's what I have a problem with. And you see that here as this story took place. Kind of it started right where we released this video. We didn't, and it was just by design, didn't name names because there could be a litany of contracts that are similar to this. A lot of them are often verbal offers.
We mentioned it could have been Fox News for all anyone knew, and they're the corporate monolith.
There's about 4 or 5. I would say we have 4 or 5 offers, and then there are other investors who come into the space who just want to dump in a whole bunch of money. Daily Wire here outed themselves, and I understand that people are saying, well, people knew who it was. Well, that's because some of the people who were under those contracts said, yeah, I recognize.
And when he says Daily Wire outed themselves, he means Jeremy Boring released a video, about an hour-long video. I've watched all of that. And if you haven't seen that, that's the interesting, that's the flip side. That's the business side to what Steven Crowder's talking about.
Recognize those contracts. And Candace said on this show, I recognize the terms from my contract. Here's the thing. I said, this is wrong. Penalizing conservatives, and I believe this to my absolute core, penalizing conservatives on behalf of big tech while taking money from people who are paying you, investing in you to fight big tech. That is what they're investing in. That is what Mug Club is investing in. That's what subscribers are investing in. While simultaneously penalizing conservatives is fundamentally wrong. I had that conversation, said, look, just please give me your word. You're not going to be doing this with other people who, as you well know, when you start in this industry, don't know better. Immediately after that, right, the conversation was, Crowder is making a big deal as a dick about money, right? Basketball money. $50 million a year was the implication, which you know is not true. People aren't saying that now. That's not what people have a problem with. What people have a problem with, I understand, is the idea of a phone call. And now the narrative has shifted to betrayal of a friend. That's what people want to say. I say last straw. I say this is something that I've watched, experienced for years, tried to give every possible out to do the right thing, and have tried to do the right thing in the way that we run our own business. Saw the gaslighting, the bully tactics that take place behind the scenes of other creators, and knew it wouldn't be myself. So now the narrative shifts to how could you record a phone call, betray a friend?
This is Crowder's spin.
It was just about money. It was just, this is just business, and now it's, hey, we're really good friends. Well, which is it? I mean, you kind of have to pick a lane, right? Are we good friends, or are you sending out a boilerplate contract that you demand of everybody according to what they say that have 110% penalties on behalf of big tech? And the issue with that is that it's dishonest. It's a tactic of the left. It's a tactic, the same kind of tactic that you see from the left, the gaslighting, where...
All right, so he's equating the penalties in the contract to the left, when in fact it's more of a business. This is how you run a business in this sphere, in this domain. He's kind of taking bits and pieces here, which I'm not a fan of, and I don't believe that's correct. However, he's got almost 6 million subscribers on YouTube, so here we go.
Let me ask you this:
Real quick.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify. You said 110% penalty.
Yeah, you can see the contract right there. If you add them all up.
So because
there's boycott
money or
what? Yeah.
The 110% is, all right, if you get deplatformed here, we're going to take off 25%. Maybe it's Facebook. You get deplatformed here, you get demonetized here, and they've got 2 varying different things for that. Here's the penalty. And what it is, it's the big business. If the big business takes the hit, Daily Wire, then their guy's going to take a hit. That's just kind of how business goes. Now, everybody wants to throw Daily Wire under the bus, but with their business model, this is literally just a term sheet, right? This is a term sheet. This is a first offer. Candace Owens in the first video we saw, she said that she went on to negotiate her contract for 5 or 6 months, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. And this is the issue. I made it clear it wasn't about me. It's about other people. It's about this being the fundamental practice. And by the way, it's not just Daily Wire, to be clear. This happens in this incestuous sphere across the board. What would you do? This is my question.
Real quick, let me ask. My concern is if people aren't familiar with the total context, you leave the Blaze, or in the process of, you're fielding offers. You receive a contract.
A term sheet, not a contract.
Yes,
which people are semantically
a predecessor to a contract, but
which is basically the terms they're offering for a contract.
Right.
Some people have argued, but the point is, they basically said you will be penalized 25% if you get a strike.
No, if you're demonetized.
If you're demonetized.
Then another 20% if there's a strike. Then another 20%, I don't remember the numbers, for Facebook, for Spotify, but there's also another penalty if your sponsors get boycotted. There's also another penalty if you don't agree to 10%, if you deny 10% of the sponsors, which is probably like you, we probably accept 1 out of 5 sponsors. But let me just kind of go through this timeline really quickly. Go ahead.
For people who are trying to understand what's going on, it's basically the contract you received specifically outlined
term
YouTube.
Term sheet.
Yeah,
the term sheet you received.
I don't know if it matters.
Said YouTube.
You don't put something in a term sheet that you don't want in a contract.
Right. Nope. It said YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Facebook.
Yeah.
Specifically, if these big tech companies are upset with you, we dock your pay.
Yes.
That's an important distinction.
Hold on. And not even dock his pay. I want to be very clear here. This is a production house. This is our budget that gets docked. Steven is not just taking, this is not basketball where you pay Kyrie Irving to go out and shoot hoops, right?
Sure.
You're paying an entire team of people to produce.
Before we get to that, like the finances,
let's
stuff,
go through the
timeline. Let me ask you this. If someone publicly was going, and by the way, I'm not going to be doing the personal stuff. I'm not going to be coming in here calling anybody a bitch, right? Sending out hatchet people. I understand why Candace was mad. Honestly, I understand why she was mad. I'd probably be mad too. So I don't think it gives you an excuse to go and talk the way like every girl does who gets their husband into a fight at a bar, but I understand why she was upset. If you had the ability, if someone's going out saying, hey, you're a difficult person who only cares about the money, and that you're a bitch, and you had the opportunity to clear it in because it was verifiably untrue, which now no one is arguing, would you do it? How else would people switch from, it was about a $50 million salary to, recording a phone call? Do we allow it when James O'Keefe does it? Is it only when corruption is on the side of the left? And here's the issue, I'll tell you who this hurts, the dishonesty. I'm not just saying Daily Wire, this is about the entire movement as a whole. There are a lot of practices that go on, and it hurts the sponsors, hurts the creators, hurts the viewers, hurts the investors. And by investors with us, it's entirely Mug Club. It's people who pay to subscribe. We don't make a dime off of YouTube. We haven't for many years. And it hurts.
Mug Club, if you're not aware, is his own private subscription service. He's got 300,000 paying subscribers at $10 a month. So he's got monthly income stream of 3 million base. It can cover some overhead. And one other thing I wanted to say is somebody said, hey, the 50 million for 4 years, Steven Crowder is producing that show, meaning he is covering the overhead. And I had it backwards. I was under the impression that he was just coming on as an employee. Daily Wire was covering all the overhead. And I believe I was wrong. So to whomever pointed that out, and I said, no, I don't think so. You were right. I was probably wrong. Let's keep going.
If you believe what we say we believe, the movement in the country as a whole. So that right there, is fundamentally dishonest. And the gaslighting still keeps taking place. Candace Owens on this show said, hey, we all follow the same guidelines, right? We all follow, Crowder does too. That's verifiably false.
Candace came on the Tim Pool show.
We've had 4 strikes, right? In the last, since May, I think, 2021 to October 2022. One was the Mekhi Bryant. One was a sketch with Alex Jones. That one's guilty. One was
as charged.
One was him quoting the CDC. And by the way, none of this will get you in trouble because you can say this now. Him quoting the CDC.
I did, yeah.
Bringing up the CDC numbers on flu deaths for children versus COVID. And we were saying this is interesting science, right? That COVID kills more senior citizens, but for some reason it's significantly less lethal to young people, to infants. That science is accepted now, so you won't get a strike. But that was one of the strikes. The other was when we had Carrie Lake on in a gubernatorial election. 4. How many have taken place from Daily Wire? You guys, 0. Now here's the thing. I'm not saying it's a badge of honor. I'm not saying that it's a badge of honor to be suspended. If they came out and said, look,
He's talking about strikes
we demand,
on YouTube.
as Jeremy said in his 55-minute video, we demand that all of our creators follow these rules that YouTube and Facebook set through punitive practices in mandating of our creators to do so. And Crowder's a little bit more of a rebel. You know what? He's been banned for 4 times. And that's not the same kind of, that's not a problem. The problem is saying that we all follow the same rules, because so that's all publicly verifiable. Now, I could tell you guys that behind the scenes, I've had many conversations with senior YouTube executives who say, we might be able to get you remonetized if you kind of play ball like these guys, Daily Wire, and insert other people here. I could tell you that, but would you believe me? Would I have to provide receipts? I could tell you that takes place. That hurts the creators out there who they end up, hitting a glass ceiling that is set, the sandbox that is mandated of their creators. The same thing happens with sponsors.
Well, let me ask you real quick. What does that mean, play ball? Obviously, you're paraphrasing, but
yeah, paraphrasing. Titles, subjects, not talk about this subject or not talk about it in this way.
Yeah.
Maybe soften. Don't use these words. Maybe change this a little bit. This happens a lot right behind the scenes, and that makes.
This happens to me every single day. I have to make a choice. Do I put this on my subscription channel? Do I let it roll here because I'm going to get more views here on YouTube? Am I going to get in trouble? I have to self-censor every single day. I have to self-censor myself here. And censorship, like somebody said, is censorship. So it's a matter of varying levels of what, as creators, we're willing to deal with. And I've got a tiny channel. I am a nobody in this sphere. And, they're really ratcheting down on channels like this just because we tend to grow.
Makes it impossible for independent content creators. The same thing happens, by the way. So that's gaslighting that you see right there. We all follow the same rules. It was about money, then it's about a phone call. With sponsors, look.
But if I could ask you, did YouTube reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to play ball with us?
Yeah, we have conversations all the time with YouTube.
Got it.
Matter of fact, I can tell you that, here's the thing. I'm not going to be providing receipts to people who don't want to be involved, right? Yeah. There's a difference between single-party consent state and wiretapping. You don't rope people in who are victims. But if it's an entity that you believe is predatory, that's the difference. There are good people at YouTube. There are some good people there who but their hands are tied. And guess what? Everyone else's hands are tied. If you say, hey, we're all trying to fight this system that exists, but you're not. You're mandating that you exist within the system. Only one person is saying, hey, you know what? If you want to be monetized and you don't, that's fine. And one is saying, you have to fit into this box.
Very important context to this is, obviously, after you put out the first video, I've talked with a bunch of my friends, and they said, look, Daily Wire is trying to run a business. If he gets banned off YouTube, how are they going to sell ads? How are they going to do the sponsorships? Where his views are gone.
Yeah.
And I've seen people tweet, all of Crowder's views come from YouTube anyway, so he'd basically be unmonetizable if he was banned. And then I point out, first of all, that's just categorically false.
Yeah, it's not true.
Because Rumble exists. And
Ben streamed there for the first time today.
And this is an important context. The contract you were offered says Facebook, Apple, I said YouTube, Apple, Facebook, Spotify, but it didn't mention any of your views from any other platforms. And there's Google Podcasts. They get views. I know the numbers. Obviously, it's not the same as say Apple, but it's interesting to me that for a lot of people, like Dan Bongino, for instance, had more subscribers on Rumble than YouTube.
Yeah.
It's interesting then that their attitude is, if you're banned from YouTube, it's a 20% fee reduction, which you mentioned.
Nobody outside of Dan Bongino has millions of subscribers on Rumble. Nobody outside of Dan Bongino is getting the views that Dan Bongino is. Nobody. Nobody's making money on Rumble. You just don't have enough eyeballs. It's not there. That's why it's not in the contract, because it's irrelevant. It's a non-factor. There's no money being made there. Maybe there will be in the future, but for a contract right now today, not happening.
Mentioned includes your staff 25. Salary, 25.
And then, 25 for and then another 20. It's 45. In other words, for us, right off the bat. And this is the thing. I said, like, what, is this an accident? Like, in other words, okay, we're good.
Well,
let me friends. But hold on a second. Does anyone here have a problem? Do you not believe me when I say we haven't been monetized on YouTube for 3 years? You all know that, right?
Of course.
Literally,
and we're not that close.
0 days, or did you have?
So what happened is we were demonetized. How many years ago? Then someone accidentally demonetized us for like 4 months, and then demonetized. and then demonetized again. We're like, what happened? And they were like, yeah, actually, no, sorry, you're demonetized again. I was like, well, skunked again.
So what did we do to get monetized, basically?
But of course, they can't answer, right?
I want to make sure this point is made clear for everybody, because this is a very important part of the argument. When I heard it, if the point is you can't sell ads or build an audience because YouTube banned you, and that's it. but you're getting 85% or more views on Rumble. The question is, why no penalty for getting banned from Rumble? Why is Rumble not a consideration in the contract at all? And why don't they simply say comparable views instead of the platform? Like, if for every 1 million views per day you lose, we dock you X%.
I can answer you that question exactly, because
So what happened?
it's fundamental to the business model. And I was informed of that. It is fundamental. In other words, there are plenty of options out there, right? He can tell you. I get excited when I walk out of them and go, hey, how many people were tuning in live on YouTube? How many on Rumble? They go, oh, it's tipped. There are more people on Rumble. Sure, I've been on YouTube for a long time, since 2006, but it doesn't mean that they don't change, right? And the issue is, I think it's a great thing to use these platforms. There's a huge difference, by the way, between being monetized and being on the platform.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if we believe what we say, we have to be trying to get to the point where we know that fast forward 5 years, you can't speak the truth on YouTube, certainly not if you want to be monetized.
Super good question I want to read here. If Crowder did not, and thank you, if Crowder did not like the terms, why not reply with a counter offer with what he wants? Crowder basically said, hey, I've got a bunch of offers. I need your highest and best. Daily Wire did their offer, and he said, nah, we're not even close. And the Daily Wire's offer was not the highest offer. Crowder came back and said, I want a highest and best. And in real estate terms, it's kind of a dick move. I want your absolute highest right here, even though we're not even really looking at a contract. That's what Crowder did. And then now we're off to the races. Now we're dealing with all this drama. So he did come back with a counter, but he wasn't really playing ball with how these contracts, like I said, Candace Owens spent 5-6 months on her contract, which is normal in a multi-million dollar media company type contract situation. Steven Crowder, to me, a lot of this is a setup for what he's going to launch independently. And, go Steven. I love all these people in this sphere because I think they're fighting for the right thing. It's how they get there. I like some more than others, as you probably do too.
Monetized. But there's this jockeying for position with people who they see as competition. And the issue here that I've always made clear is the locking in of these punitive contracts that mandate and enforce big tech policies and guidelines as a matter of business. And that hurts creators. And the same thing, by the way, when we're talking about misleading practices with sponsors, there's no problem. Right? And this is all publicly verifiable. I want you guys to be able to audit this so that there don't have to be as many receipts provided. You market your channel, right? I think we probably have some ads running right now, like Spotify, hey, if you like this show, tune in on Spotify. Yeah. But there's a big difference. We know that there's a huge problem in our industry of pay to play. Now, you can do that. That's fine if you want to grow your numbers. But
what is that?
So pay to play means that you can buy views, right? You can pay to play. You can run your video as a pre-roll ad, and people see that number. But really, a lot of them are 14-second views, 8-second views, but it still clicks that counter. The closest apples to apples comparison that you could do right now is you could go out and take, let's say, not this controversy because there's cross-pollination, but Ben Shapiro's a huge show. Of course he is. But go take some videos there right now that have 1 million plays. Go month after month. Take a bunch of them. Look at the likes. Look at the comments. Take videos from my channel. It's comparable plays. Take them with 800,000, 600,000 plays because we've converted them a lot to Rumble. Look at the likes. Look at the comments. It's startling because it's a lot easier to buy plays than it is to buy likes and comments. That's not a problem.
Well, are you saying that the Daily Wire is buying views for their content?
I'm saying that they run the videos. This happens not just Daily Wire, to be clear. Stop Big Con is designed because it's the entire industry. And what happens is, yes, these views get inflated. There's nothing wrong with running ads to increase the video count. The problem is this. When that is used to then go out and set sponsorship rates. And then, this is what happens with creators. When you sit down with sponsors, and these are hard-earned dollars, right? A lot of them are mid-sized companies. You run them on this show, and they say, yeah, but you know what? We didn't get our money's worth, and this person is the #1 show. Because they go out and they say that they have these numbers, and they set what happens? They drop those rates across the board, which hurts everybody, or they pull out altogether. Now, you can publicly verify that information. Now, I could tell you guys that I've had conversations with sponsors that say, we're not going to be running in the conservative space because it's just not as effective as we thought it was, or we're going to be pulling out. And content creators just say, why am I getting these low advertising rates? Here's the issue. If you're some kid, and by kid, I mean, you could be a 40-year-old with a smaller podcast. Let's say you get 250,000 plays. Not as big, but good numbers. Let's say you get 500,000 plays, right? Good numbers, but they're real. And you are a conservative, and you're trying to grow this. And then all of a sudden, your content, YouTube is saying, can't say that, can't do that because of the box that's being created by all of these companies in big conservatism. And then you're trying to make it, right? You're trying to make it something that is financially solvent, and you can't because sponsors no longer have faith in this side of the industry. That is something that hurts those creators. And this is something that, so the creators are
That's absolutely true. 100% true. So the way I'm able to make this work is I have other income streams.
Hurt, the sponsors are hurt, the viewers are hurt because I just want to finish this one, and then any questions you have. The viewers are hurt because they feel isolated. They feel like their views are not represented, right? They go, hold on a second, I'm conservative. Why are none of the top people saying whatever it is? X, Y, Z. And the investors are hurt. And I don't mean billionaires. In our case, it's people who invest when they sign up for Mug Club. They are paying us because they say, we know that you're demonetized. We know that you don't run nearly as many sponsors. You're very selective. And we think we are giving you our dollar in faith because we think that you are fighting for us. Imagine, let me give you one final parallel world there. Imagine if we left the blaze, okay? And this, again, the issue is that everyone is demanded to sign these exact same contracts. That's what they said. They've been very, very clear about that. It's just business. Imagine if Mug Club leaves the blaze. And let's say we come back 2-3 months, okay? And we come back, and all of a sudden, I don't talk about vaccines in the way that I used to. All of a sudden, I don't talk about election integrity like I used to. All of a sudden, I don't host Carrie Lake in the same way that I used to, or host her at all. And all of a sudden, all the parodies, the sketches, the sweeping epic, like a parody of Saving Private Ryan, or There Will Be Blood, or Schindler's List, whatever it is, you don't see any, change my mind, you don't see any of those anymore, but you see 4 or 5 live reads. I'd be the definition of a sellout. And I would be selling out the people who paid for something different. Only one group of people here is saying, you have to fit into this box. I'm saying, you got to let some people let the freak flag fly. I don't care if you want to be monetized or not. Don't lock people and punish them on behalf of big tech when you claim that you are fighting them. And it is everywhere. And it's disheartening.
I'll tell you a story. I think the people who have watched my content consistently know about this. It was called, some refer to it as ad rights sales, ad rights buying. Back in the early 2010s, these up-and-coming digital media outlets would sell the rights. What they would do is they would buy the rights to views. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're a company called like badbehavior.com. Some word that represents people.
Why'd you pick one that is clearly going to direct people to hardcore pornography?
I was just going to say, that sounds like a porn channel.
All right, let's just say
goodbehavior.com.
Skittles and Rainbows website, okay? And
same.
How many of you guys already looked that up?
Bodacious M&M's website.
Let's say you're a big brand, and you get about 30 million views per month. Mm-hmm. That's not going to cut it. You can sell a premium idea. There would be these low-tier websites. You've seen them before. You'll see an ad and it'll say, guess what this celebrity looks like now. You click it. Mm-hmm. And then it'll say, here's the celebrity throughout 25 years. And every photo has 50 ads. And you click next and it loads a new page with 50 ads. What they're doing is harvesting views.
Right.
So then this website that nobody knows the name of, nobody visits, tricks you into collecting a view. They then sell the rights to those views to a premium network. The premium network then goes to advertisers and says, our network gets 200 million views per month. Right. And if you advertise with us, you are in that network. And in reality, you only get 30.
Talking
but they
about
bought
manipulation.
The rights
and meanwhile, there's some kid who's actually getting 10 million views, right? Meanwhile, there's some kid, and he doesn't get the same advertiser rates because he gets burned. And then those kids drop out. Does anyone ever wonder why the burnout rate is so high in this industry? There's so many good people. I mean, you can go back to when I was on PJTV in 2009. People who I worked with, good, solid people who, by the way, had skin in the game, who had a lot to lose. And you'll never hear from them again because they just go, I'm out. They get disenfranchised. They get disenchanted. And that's the issue. Look, it doesn't affect me. I'll be fine either way. But we've always talked about building a bench, and I've always talked about wanting to be able to pass the torch. It's not possible.
When you've got 300,000 paid subscribers on your own private network, you've got some income. He's got the ability to do that. What we're talking about is everybody else still up and coming, anybody future-wise. And remember, these guys, Steven Crowder is 35 years old. He's 35. I look at him, I think this dude has got to be, he looks good for 45, right?
To do this way. And by the way this is true.
He's also really jacked.
Right now, I have said, I don't want to do this. Again, I've been thinking about this for a long time, trying to work behind the scenes, trying to work within the system until I realized there's just no interest in doing it that way. And then you say, okay, is our move, this is why we lose. Conservatives wonder, what the hell, with the midterms, what the hell happened? Why do you think? Why do you think people like Lindsey Graham, like Mitch McConnell, nothing personal against them, why do you think that there are people out there and you go, how do they not get voted out? Why do you think these are our decisions for speaker. These are our choices. Why do you think you constantly lose? Because the people who really do want to be the vanguard at the cutting edge, they burn out and they leave because they can't compete against it. And that's the issue.
I got to tell you, man, I make this point all the time where I just say, for all the people who are claiming I'm a grifter or I only want money and that I don't really believe the things I'm fighting for, I'm like, it would be so much easier to sell everything, shut it all down, and just buy some properties, rent them out, and not have to worry about any of this.
Take money and shut up, right?
Take money and shut up. But it's not about what's easy.
Yeah.
It's about what matters.
Yeah. And by the way, we want you guys to make money. We want every conservative
Yes.
in this space to run a profitable business. That's what I run. I own a wine
started
business.
Manuka honey back there.
Yeah. We want people to make as
got the
much
good
money
stuff.
as humanly possible, but do it honestly. And just be honest with people about how you're going to spend that money as well.
Well, there's the
no
issue
problem.
too. Again, when we're talking about honesty, is it just friends or is it just business? You kind of have to pick one. Is it a lash out or is it premeditated? You kind of have to pick one. Look,
Let's
yeah, go ahead.
I do want to talk about the friend versus business thing, but I do want to first jump into a segment where we can talk about $50 million. The big narrative that we were hearing about your
Well,
argument.
it's not anymore, right? They changed it to the
Right.
phone call. That
Now
was the
it's-
initial narrative, which was a lie. That's a tactic of the left.
Well, so
Gaslight.
let's do the context here.
Yeah.
You put out a video. You mentioned, look at these fees. It's
I never mentioned money outside of what I
Right.
believe were immoral penalty fees. I never talked.
Yeah.
You've never heard me say, "Hey, not enough money was offered." That's not what it's about.
So when
Yeah.
we first were watching the show and we talked about it, I said, "What's the fee? We don't know." And then the Daily Wire's response, of course, was, "We offered this guy $50 million
Basketball money.
basketball money." The response then from detractors and most people was, "Holy crap!" And they're imagining Steven Crowder in a big private bank vault diving into a bunch of
Scrooge
gold
McDuck.
coins.
Scrooge McDuck.
When in reality, the $50 million included the entire budget for your whole staff, your whole production facility, every production you would have done, meaning you've got to pay, how many employees do you have?
About 25, soon to be 30 something.
Soon to be 30 something. Now, if you want to do production on a skit, we're talking maybe 30 to 50K, depending on the size of the skit.
This is what I was talking about earlier that I got wrong. I didn't understand, or I didn't pick up. I just assumed that the 50 million for 4 and then the 25 for 2, was it? I think it was an extension. Steven Crowder was not responsible for his own production costs. And I was like, oh, 50. Okay. All right. I don't know what the production costs are. I'm not privy to that. But this $50 million offer, there's a lot of expenses. He just got through saying there's 25, 30 people. Those are not cheap people. These are not, $18 an hour workers.
Skit.
Yeah. Every time we show up to do a change, my minus $50,000.
50,
Yeah.
security,
Millions in legal each
camera
year,
work.
millions of
Payroll
dollars in
every
equipment, payroll, millions of dollars in taxes. It's the merging of, what was that?
It's theft.
Yes, I completely agree.
But let me just say,
Wheelhouse.
I'm on your side on this one. Everybody can know my bias. The reason that really bothered me is because I run a company. I know how much money we make. And there are people who assume that revenue equals money in your pocket profit. And it's like, no. If they're giving him $50 million, it sounds so wonderful.
They're
until
assuming you're dumb. They're treating the audience like they're dumb. Again,
Well,
I
no.
think-
A lot of people don't.
But here's
don't
the thing.
understand this.
People don't understand because they're assuming that you won't go and do research. Look, $50 million basketball money versus $12 million. If let's say Marvel says, I don't know, the new Thor movie is $200 million. Is that Hemsworth's salary? It's that simple of an analogy.
Yeah.
But the issue here, and I'll let Gerald kind of talk about that more. The issue here is like, I think that these people at Daily Wire, they've said that they're very business savvy. They're running a business. So are they very business savvy? Are they dumb and don't know that $12.5 million a year for an entire production house is what we're actually looking at? Or are they lying when they say it's basketball money and $50 million salary? I think Candace Owens at one point got up to like 140 or something. I don't
So
really.
you said you wanted $30
Right.
million a year or 140
And the
million.
only reason people know that's not true, and you've seen the transcript, you ever see me once say, hey, it's about more money? There was never an offer sent after I said, look, it's a non-starter if you don't change these terms, and please tell me that you're not doing this with other people. There was never anything after that where it was, of course the non-starter is, I can't do 5 live reads because we do commercials.
let me-
I just want to ask one specific question because a lot of people are bringing this up and they're accusing you guys of only exposing them after they turned down your counteroffer. Is that true, or can you add more information to that?
Yeah, I don't know why they're saying the timeline that he kind of gave was completely inaccurate.
Yeah, there was never any counter offer from us. What Steven said was basically, look, guys, these are the terms that we have a problem with.
Right.
And if I don't care what the contract says dollar-wise, if these terms are in there, that's bad, and you need to start again. This
Right.
has to be pulled out.
So there was no counter offer, because I'm seeing a lot of you guys say
There was
you
the
guys-
agent. The agent, I think my agent, they sent this term sheet. The agent said, well, if you're talking about 100% ownership, by the way, in perpetuity forever, meaning, and it's a 6-year contract with no option to negotiate. They have an option to extend for 2 years. 6 years, locked in at that rate. And again, right, how do you penalize someone for money that they don't make? They're not going to lose money on you being demonetized. Now, I get that I'm a special situation, but they said this is demanded of everybody. The big con issue is something that I've been running up against, and everyone in this industry knows for many, many years. They just were arrogant enough to out themselves and to put it in writing and to say, we know how to run this business, we figured it out. You don't know what you're talking about. And of course, after that, another last straw was, then going and trying to take our social media director, and I only showed you that email because he's willing for me to show you. Like, we have our people poached all the time. When you have your ideas stolen and they put more money behind it, not just mine, when you build someone up and someone else comes in and says, hey, we'll offer you more money, they use them for 6 months and burn them out. I'm sure that's an accident. I'm sure the people at the top of Daily Wire didn't know when they reached out to someone who was not looking for a job, who loudly and proudly advertises himself as social media director for Loud with Crowder. But I could tell you that on that phone call, they said, we have an entire social media department. Right? I said, I have one guy, Gary, and he's awesome. A few days later.
I do want to dedicate more
Did
time.
Gary join Daily Wire?
Well,
No, they came in and tried to hire him. He's not looking for a job.
So I wanted to run kind of that long sequence there. We're getting into some of the weeds, of the details here, which I find fascinating. But some of the things, so when Crowder says, if there's no revenue coming in, and this is my point, if there's no revenue coming into the show, and he's still got guaranteed income of $50 million, whatever company, he's at, is losing money. If they've got outflow and they do not have the inflow, this is business.
I want to dedicate some more time to starting from the beginning of the context of that story. But I wanted to address something before Luke jumped in. How
dare you, Luke?
Yeah, how dare you, Luke?
I
Go to Florida.
No.
Go to Florida.
I'm sitting here.
That was a good question. I'm not saying it. I'm I want to put a tack in this. And one of the big things we're hearing is a friend. You guys were friends, and the recording of the phone call and stuff. And thinking about the contract. 4-year contract with option to renew for 2, locking you in at that rate, 12.5, including the entirety of your staff. And it's just business, and I'm kind of like, I hear that. It's not something friends offer their friends.
No, is it boilerplate? We send this to everybody? Or is it a friend? You know what it costs to have a lawyer mark up a term sheet? It ends up being thousands of dollars, especially when it's like, hey, look, hit select all, delete. None of this makes sense. This isn't for someone who's been demonetized. But the problem, and that's when it came down to, well, you heard in that phone call. I said, take me out of it, right? This is not the right fit period. I knew that. Please tell me that these are not the terms that are demanded. Penalties that you are monetized on YouTube, that you remain on Facebook, that you stay in. Please tell me these are not the terms that are demanded of everybody. And I said, those were the last words. And he said, yeah, maybe I'll take it under advisement. And then you go, okay, all right, this is where we are. There's no hope for the movement if we claim to be fighting big tech and we sell out the people who are paying us to do so and fighting on behalf of big tech. I'm sorry, it is something, it's wrong.
Earlier in the show, you mentioned that, I think you mentioned this in the show, that you...
What I think of there, and my initial thought was, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. That's what Steven Crowder is going to become. He's going to start running his own show. He's going to start bringing other, content creators in, and he's going to go, oh my gosh, this isn't working out financially. Oh, I need to, good Lord. Maybe Daily Wire was right. That from my business perspective and my limited understanding of how these contracts work and the income streams that they're talking about for these shows, that is my initial thought is, well, Steven Crowder's going to figure this out, but he's going to have to go through this the hard way. And maybe the Daily Wire is absolutely screwing these content creators. And they probably are, because you can't get that large without, the little people supporting all of the bandwidth and the infrastructure. So there's probably some on both sides. And what's going to be entertaining is just how this plays out in real life. And that's part of why I wanted us to be here today, because I think this is worth talking about. And a lot of folks who don't know who these folks are, they're like, who? We know.
you were in Hollywood, you were doing the standard talent route, and then you decided to come out on YouTube as a conservative, and it basically cost you a lot. You lost your manager. You don't come off to me as a lot of, Candace was on the show and she said he's doing it for money. It's so obvious. Why can't people see it? And I'm thinking about that and I'm like,
do you believe that?
No, I don't.
Well, they're accusing you of counter offering.
But I understand that. But the first thing I thought was, I'm like, Crowder's already rich. You know what I mean? Like, I understand people are looking at contracts and
Not
money.
really like you'd think. I mean, if they want to do personal tax returns and business tax returns and the charitable givings, we can do that.
This is
we can do that. We
Again,
can do it through a third party and seal them because I get private information. We can do that. Gerald will tell you.
This is again, people like why I care about the subject matter so much.
Yeah.
Running this business and making lots of money. I often say, for a guy like me, who growing up in Chicago and being close to the bottom of the totem pole as an American, which is great for the rest of the world. I mean, for the rest, America's awesome.
Right.
The poorest person is wealthy compared to everybody else.
Right.
But there's a certain point in terms of having things that I could have ever wanted, and it's a very, very low bar.
Right.
I'm making it once I got hired by Disney, the Disney Fusion, they're paying me $250K. I'm staring at money I have no idea what to do with.
Right.
Beyond that, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do everything I can.
That's
But this is the thing, the dialogue shifted to money, 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 money. You heard me say this is wrong, and then it's money, 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 just a business. And then it's this is wrong. Money, 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 this is just a business. Look, it's not just a business. And by the way, when you're talking about business, find out what motivates the people you're in business with. I'm not motivated by money. That's not what motivates me. If you look back at the track record in 2009, it was because I wanted to see the system burn, meaning as far as the system that kept conservatives in line. And I mean the liberal system, but then when you realize that it's on your own side, I'm not motivated by money. And by the way, don't leave someone with nothing to lose. You know the easiest situation is take the money, shut up. Second easiest is go bet on yourselves. You've seen the numbers that we've given you there. And guess what? You make more money, you shut up. The option of say no and say, look, this is wrong and speak out is significantly harder than any of the other paths.
The two things I want to say is, my point on the money was I view you in a similar way, that you're ideologically driven, that if you have the resources to do what you want to do and you're living comfortably and taking care of your family, beyond that, I don't see you as the kind of guy who's like, I don't have an infinity pool and 3 Ferraris in my garage. So when they say Crowder is just...
What's the infinity pool? Is that the
edge?
It's where the edge goes off, like, and so, yeah.
It looks like a horizon.
I have no idea.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind
into a
one.
sewer. That's
Right, but the question is, if you had the
Sometimes
choice
these guys
between an
are just
infinity
flat
pool
nerds,
and
right? Let's call it what
a
they
young,
are.
a talented personality who is going to help change the shape of this country for the better, I think you're going to choose to change the shape of this country for better. That's my view of you.
100%. I had to tell this guy that it was okay to buy a reasonably priced shotgun.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. This is not me like stating.
Well, he is Canadian.
We've been friends. We've been friends for a while. Steven can tell me at any point to go pound sand, right? So I'm not kissing up. It's just like he's like, guys, I want to buy this shotgun. And I'm thinking,
Benelli
like,
M4. Benelli M4.
It's a good one. I
It's
got
not
one. I got one.
crazy though, right?
I got
Do you have the H2O version?
I have the foldable stock.
Hey, look,
I want,
Is it basketball money? Crazy expensive? No, it's
We're
not. Right?
talking
And so he
vanilla
Everyone in America deserves a shotgun.
A Benelli too.
A Benelli.
We went
Nice.
to it.
It was 2.5.
We were in
before I
Texas
pulled it.
together, and that you were there when I bought it.
Yeah, but we were at a shop out here.
It's a fun
Luke
gun.
said, "Hey, you should buy that. It's really great." I buy it, and then he goes, "I want it. I want it
Yeah.
instead."
Was it a Benelli?
And then
Yeah,
I was pissed off because I was like, I didn't think. I was like, I should have bought this. And then he bought it before me.
Okay,
And I'm like,
okay.
wait.
So wait, hold on. This is fun because this is
We had a
he
whole
was-
argument.
John was with. By the way, how many people are watching right now?
150,000-ish?
158.
On our channel, 158,000.
158,000.
Amazing.
So what?
158. Is that a?
158,000.
That's just on your channel. That's why we're still streaming on ours. Right?
I think second highest number we've ever done.
Okay.
Just on our YouTube alone. Did you want to
transfer?
make a
no,
point?
no, it wasn't really a point. It was the Benelli M4, right? So what happened is I really wanted, but they're not cheap. And I was like, you know what? I can't justify buying this. You can go buy it online. And so I was talking with Gerald and Johnny Boy, who you met, my Canadian friend. I said, okay, you know what? If I go into, because they're like unicorns, they sell out right away. I said, if I go into a gun store to pick up something up or something, and it happens to be there, that's God telling me he wants me to have a Benelli M4. And I went to go pick up some transfers from Walther, and lo and behold, I see one there, just came in, and it's the H2O version, the Cerakoted version. And I don't think you were with me, but Johnny Boy was. And I was like, I still don't think I can justify it. He said, if you don't pay for it, I'm going to buy it. And of course, I knew that it would be far more expensive for him. So I bought it, but it took a long time. I'm not really motivated, but it is a nice shotgun, though, I will say. Yeah, occasionally, there are some things, if you're going to spend money on.
Oh, a tool. Any tool that you want to learn something with, like a guitar, too. You want to get a good a really good tool.
Yeah, or like knives. Like if I have like there's a huge with steel and knives. Okay, sorry, Tim. I know we're giving you.
Let's go. I love the Benelli stuff because
Yeah.
I got one.
I wanted to make
but I got to make a point about
Tim
you
used to be
said in
anti-gun.
2009 you were like you realize that the liberal system is holding you back or something to that effect, and then you eventually realize it's on your side as well.
Yeah.
I look over to Luke because Luke's the guy who's been screaming since 2006. Like the Republican machine is lying to you all the same. The powers that were being given to the intel agencies and the establishment will be used against you.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Well, here's the thing. You're absolutely right. And let's be honest, right? How can you change all that yourself? You're doing the best that you can, right? But there's only so much that you can do. The difference is right now, at this point, an inflection point in history, as it relates to right-wing conservative media, I can do something. I can't change the intelligence agencies. But you know what? When I ask Carrie Lake on the show, I say, would you disband the FBI? Yeah, I would. Boom. Gone. Suspended. I can do something about that. I can't change the CIA or the FBI. You're probably more effective with that than I am. I'm an entertainment guy. I was a guy telling jokes in clubs, having beer bottles thrown at me when I was 17 years old, voicing a black bear who was the best friend of an aardvark when I was 12, which is clearly derived from hallucinogenic drugs.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's funny. I had to do the Kwanzaa rep if ever you want to find something embarrassing for the Christmas episode. And that's when I was 13 years old. And I was like, oh, Kwanzaa. And I was like, let me look into this. I should, Daniel Day-Lewis this. And then I realized, oh, it's bullshit. It's Ron Everett, and he beat them with fire hoses and soldering irons. And then I'm doing this song for Arthur. Hey, come together now. It's
I remember when
Kwanzaa time.
Crowder
And I
did that.
wanted to.
Was the pay worth it?
Tim was all
Well, at that
excited.
point, I was under contract at 12 years old.
Right.
So there's not much you can do.
I still remember we were called crazy truthers for calling this out as rationally as we did, saying, hey, the national security state is going to be turned around against you, and it has. But
No, you're right.
At that time specifically, we had a discourse that was kind of free and open. We didn't have algorithms. People were able to see important messages and videos and talking points and content creators. Now we're living in a different age. I wanted to kind of get your point of view. Some people say you have to keep pushing the Overton window. Some people say you got to keep playing ball. Mark Dice is also in the chat. He just is accusing Ben Shapiro of allegedly paying $135,000 to boost his Facebook posts. I don't know if that's true.
Well, who cares though? He can do that. The only
Those
issue
are
I have
ads.
is when that's used and it hurts people because sponsors drop out because they don't get their money's worth. Again, I could tell you that, but would those receipts be a betrayal? Because this industry fundamentally needs to change. People are investing in you and in us and in what you're saying. Right? If you can't say what it is that you're saying right now, let's say if you sent a contract and said, yeah, but you know what? We have a lot of buddies in those systems. You're selling out the people who are supporting you. And that's something that to me is unconscionable. And people can disagree with it, but no, I think you're absolutely right.
So
People
what would
are
be
talking
the
about
total solution? I want to get into the problem solving. Like, what would you do if you were the Daily Wire?
Okay, so the only thing, and this is the thing, this is all done right now. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but the first answer, and I've said we won't talk about this again. If someone takes a pledge alongside me, anyone in BigCon, just the only thing that I ask is that you do not punish conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. That's it. Start with that. Let's start with that. Before we get to everything else, right? So a lot of times people want the entire solution. Just start with that. You won't be penalized 25% if you're demonetized on YouTube by the people who are supposed to be fighting for you.
Now let's address the argument there.
Yeah.
The argument they've made is why should we be the ones to lose money if you're removed from the platform and not making money?
And that sounds really great, right? It's a partnership. That's what they were talking about. They were trying to pick like a partnership and put it into contract form, or at least in this, like a term sheet.
Let's hang there for 1 second. I want to go back to a couple of comments. Was this a mafia contract that was offered to Steven Crowder? I don't know. What is a normal contract within this case? If Steven Crowder is producing all of this stuff, this contract sounds worse and worse, right? It sounds terrible. And does the Mug Club, is that part of what Daily Wire is going to take? Is that Daily Wire's to take? Is that their income stream to take? Or does Steven Crowder does he still get that because that's his side gig? And then who, after this contract is over, who takes possession of that? In whose possession does that remain? So many of these things. And this was a term sheet. This was a term sheet. This was not a contract, right? So this was a low ball first offer. We get those in real estate all the time. Low ball first offer. And what do? You counter, and you counter back and forth. And then after a while, you either put together a deal or you don't. Another thing somebody else said was, where's all the talent that Steven Crowder has built up? All right. Yeah, that is a very, very valid concept is that Steven Crowder, he's talking about meet the new boss, same as the old boss. He wants to recreate the wheel and do his own thing, which he might very well do. He's going to have to bring talent with him. And that to me, that was the first salvo that he sent out with that first video was, hey, I want you. That's what I took away from it. If you're interested, he gave the email on his screen. I want you to reach out to me if you're a young content creator, because I don't want to see you get screwed by these big corporate guys. That's what he was trying to bring in. Okay. All right. I mean, yeah, maybe some of these terms are ridiculous, but the infrastructure it takes to, bring along a young content creator who is basically a talking head with some opinions, I'm just as guilty of that. But it takes an awful lot of money and assets and continual resources to get that person to grow. And Steven Crowder hasn't done that yet. So Steven Crowder has proved himself in his own space, but he hasn't proved himself running a company and bringing others up in it. I mean, that is a very, very valid point.
Right? Well, what it didn't take.
Okay, yeah, the Blaze took his mug club and members. So that's some of what I was going to do a deep dive on that this morning, but I didn't get to it because I worked on that Candace Owens thing. I know there's 2 different versions of the mug club. This whole thing just gets a little muddy, doesn't it? And so the Blaze took it. That's interesting.
Take into account, honestly, is
okay,
what
as
if,
a mug
what if
club
Steven,
member.
okay, it's $12.5 million. What if he's making them 30? What if he's making them $30 million
What's the starting point
a
is a
year?
guarantee.
Yeah. What if he's making them
Yeah.
$30 million a year, and all of a sudden, instead of making 30, you subtract 2 from that. So it's fine to share in these things when the expenses come up, but when the upside comes up, we're not really in a partnership anymore.
We would be the
this
only
wasn't
one-
about money, guys.
We would be the only
It's
ones
just
at risk.
disingenuous.
The only ones at risk. I'm already demonetized.
Right.
I can hear
But
Jeremy
hold on,
being
this
like,
is-
"It was a term sheet. I would have negotiated."
Okay,
I can
okay,
hear him.
all right,
just-
Well,
hold on,
look, I can write that I
But
want
he
to have
didn't,
sex
though.
with your wife on a
There is
term
no-
sheet. Oh, I thought you were going to
wait,
redline
wait.
it. It's like, come on, that doesn't.
Okay, George Costanza.
This
I
is-
had sex with your wife.
This is a good point. It penalized you. It's if you get banned, you lose X percent, and
No matter how much you're making.
45.
no matter how much you're making,
No.
and no matter how much you lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you lose $0, they penalize you.
And the penalties add up to 110%. And they said in their own video, this is demanded of all creators, right? Does anyone disagree that that's what was said? This is what everyone signs.
Now,
here's the
counter-
issue with that. Again, you don't put it in if you don't want that.
The counterpoint, Candace said, is
Yeah.
she negotiated. She hired a lawyer.
Yeah.
Steven Crowder has the resources to hire a lawyer and redline this.
Sure.
She put on her.
I thought
big
we were
girl
good
pants.
friends.
I figured
thought
out
we were
why
friends.
Candace was so pissed last
So
week.
hold on, wait,
Trying
wait.
in.
Yeah.
I figured it out. I'll tell you about it in a second.
I want to let's talk about the friends thing. This is actually a really good point. You recorded co-CEO of Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, on a phone call.
Yep.
He says, "I thought we were friends."
Yep.
A lot of people have said, "Wow, that was a messed up thing to do." It sounds like what you're saying in the context we were just talking. They sent you a business contract that was very bad, that penalized you 110% if all fees are applied, more money than they would actually pay you. And it didn't take into consideration if you made them more money. It didn't take into consideration how much money you made them. It didn't take into consideration if you were banned from Facebook, but Facebook generated no revenue.
Yeah.
It still penalized you.
That's part of it.
So here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm thinking. If the question is, and I do have qualms about recording the recording, but we'll get into more detail.
Mm-hmm.
They say you were supposed to be friends. Why would you record your friend's phone call?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's an interesting point to be made. Why would your friend send you a very, very bad contract that felt exploitative?
And why would a friend not listen to you when you say, take me off the table, it's not a fit? There was never, just to be clear, there was never another offer that came through after I said, these are the non-starters. The penalties for big tech, right? The owning of people's names, image, likeness, their platforms are in perpetuity long after they leave. I said, then we can talk about the money, right? He said they came in low, and I'm sure my gay Cuban hardcore right-wing agent came in high. You find that, but it's like, but there can't be any terms without this. Once I said that can't happen, these terms, the big tech penalties, that's when talks completely stopped. It was never changed and said, of course, all these, it's like you saw in their first video, we have to make money.
They outright said that fee structure couldn't be changed.
Yeah, there was never another offer after that. I said, look, this is the sticking point. You have to get rid of.
Never another offer on the numbers. Never another offer, and not negotiating that out are 2 different things. The Daily Wire may have decided, okay, he's going to go with all this other stuff. He's probably already got a higher offer from somebody else. We've already got a whole bunch of talent. Do we want to spend this much to get this guy? Maybe not. So, you got to kind of read between the lines here, right?
Rid of all of these.
Change it.
And also, we can't do this. I'd love to sit as from one business owner to another. You don't have to do it this way, right? A good example is, look, I feel vulgar talking about numbers. Election night. Okay, election night. We had been suspended for having Carrie Lake on. The entire Daily Wire cast on YouTube, less than a quarter of the viewers that we had on Rumble. When we cross streams, their viewership went up 40,000 people. That's proof of product that, hey, look, proof of concept. You can do it off of YouTube. You don't have to.
Right.
I think you use the platform as long as you can, but you need to start building alternatives. It is fundamental to the business model on the right
That is
to
true.
not change that.
And I'll just point out that we have about 120,000 more live viewers than we average with you being here. So there's something to be said for
I think
that.
Daily Wire's got some creative, a lot of opportunity on their website. Because if all your back catalog was on Daily Wire at no cost to anybody, and they could go into Daily Wire, log in, and then I spend 99 cents on a Crowder video, and then that money gets split between you guys. There's a lot of technical
Well, they're already going to be doing
possibilities.
over 300,000 Mug Clip subscribers day one, right? Now, the issue here is let's take me out of it. Let's say you're starting your own thing, right? You're trying to come up in this movement. And the terms are being set by people on your side behind the scenes where this is the ball that you have to play. I said to Jimmy, take me out of it. It's not the right fit, which I thought, if I don't have a dog in this fight anymore, it won't fall on deaf ears when I say, hey, it's about the next kid. This can't work. We can't have a movement. We can't sell our people out. And that's how I view it. Maybe you don't. They said, this is just a business. These are the terms. But there are alternatives. You don't have to be dependent on YouTube or Facebook. And you certainly shouldn't make it fundamental to your business model when you're telling people that you're fighting them. This has been going on for years. Years.
Here's my
and not
view.
just Daily Wire, to be clear. Not just Daily Wire. Pick a name in the movement. Most likely, yes.
Here's my view of it. I think the Daily Wire does important
kinda
work,
zoned out
good
there.
work. Candace Owens' BLM documentary, I think, was good. What is a Woman, I think, was a massive success. That What is a Woman reached people that I know that aren't political, and that's a cool.
In the Daily Wire's defense, they are producing content you are not finding anywhere else. Whether you think it's great content or not, they're the only big gig out there kind of doing what they're doing.
Cultural force. So I think I talked with them. We had a meeting. I sat down with Jeremy, with a few of the other guys, but mostly with Jeremy. Jeremy came on the show. Afterwards, he said, "Hey, if there's anything you ever need, let us know. Thanks for having me on." And I was like, "I'll hit you up sometime." We talked about doing Nashville week because we wanted to try out our new mobile studio. Then while we're in the process of setting this up, I said, well, let's talk. I mean, is there a way we can maximize the effectiveness of our operations? You guys are way bigger than us.
Of course.
But of course, there could be an opportunity that we don't understand that you do. And so we started talking about a variety of different
Tim's
things.
looking to get his music.
Ultimately, it came
going
to
more.
potential terms. It came to requirements. Of all the businesses I've ever negotiated with, the most real, in my opinion, was with Jeremy. It was like I was talking to an actual human being who knew what he meant, who explained the pitfalls, the pros and cons. Look, if we do a deal like this, you're right, it's going to suck because of that reason. That's true. What do you think? And I said, I don't know if that's going to work for us. The joke is, I actually said, what if I want to put up a billboard that says Liz Cheney's a fat pig? And he was like, that's not us. Like, we're not. And I said,
couldn't find one big enough?
right. But I said, like, I'm not literally going to do that. I feel it is kind of crude saying that point. But the point I'm trying to make is that we're
it's kinda
roguish.
no
We want to
wonder
do weird
Crowder
things.
gets
The ultimate conclusion was,
right?
then there's maybe we can't work transactionally together. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but we'll do
funny.
other cool stuff. Sure. We'll talk with your guys on our shows. We'll have you on. You can come on. This will be really great for everybody. And so my view was like, I agree with you on the contract stuff.
But why did it really fall apart?
Why
did it completely fall apart?
Like the deal with the
In other words,
Daily
what
Wire?
you're saying is they were saying you need to be in this box because it's not about the billboard. Let's be honest. It's not just about the billboard. If you're
Well, the
saying you don't
billboard
wanna
was
do
the box. It was like, if I wanted to do something that was aggressive and more shocking, the billboard is that point.
Yeah.
I don't want to put up a billboard calling Liz Cheney a fat pig.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Did they do the thing where they said, we tried to look at outside capital for you for the first time. We couldn't
No.
make it work. They didn't do that? They didn't do that?
I don't want to.
go-to.
I don't want to
A lot of
give up too much of the details of the conversation we had.
Some of the things that Steven's talking about are normal business negotiations. Yeah, they probably sent him a real lowball, offer on that first deal, right? But bringing in outside capital, for 50 million, $50 million or $75 million contract, you bet. Outside investor, that is not uncommon. Is it a ploy? Is it a bait and switch type deal? Probably. But if you're in this sphere, expect to get absolutely screwed. So when you do, it hurts just a little bit less. You know what I mean? That's business. It's how big of a beatdown can you take? Can you keep going and take the beatdown? That's all that this is, right?
Of course.
But I basically said, let's just say I made a big ask of the biggest asks. Mm-hmm. That if what you're saying, it has to be this way, then I have a very, very big ask. And they were like, yeah, that's expensive. We don't know if we can do that. And I was like, look, ultimately what it comes down to is, for those that understand tabletop RPGs, they play Paladin, I play Rogue. Someone commented in Super Chat.
Now we're going off topic.
But I'll explain right now.
Do you not?
Someone Super Chatted, they're trying to be rebels within the box.
They're warriors of God. That's a Paladin.
Basically, think of a stoic monk, a knight following the rules, holding his sword, saying, look, the rules are as such. We will do right to the best of our abilities. Whereas we here at Timcast are like a bunch of crackpots in the bandits' forest being like, we're going to do what we want to do when we
It's
feel
like the
like
Lost Boys out here. It's a skate park, and it's like a bunch of mopeds, and I thought you were going to throw a basketball in my face, ask me to play. I wanted to yell a bangering.
I did bring you to the basketball court.
You did? Yeah, I meant the VIP up the half pipe. Yeah, I would agree with you.
Right. If you guys haven't seen Tim Pool, he's on this big acreage spread, and he's building a couple of homes, I think. He's got this big indoor skate park. He's got a basketball court. He's got all this stuff. He's a kid, grew up in the south side of Chicago, didn't have a lot of money. He's got a little bit of money now, and he wants to live on his own off the grid. He's doing his thing, but he's not driving Ferraris. No, he's not.
Here's the problem. When you have a few, because this is not about the Daily Wire. There are a few key companies that control what is permissible in this movement. And these few key companies are saying, this is the only way. I'm saying there could be many ways. It would be one thing if we're saying, hey, maybe this way, maybe this other way. But now this sort of reeks of, why don't you go and create your own YouTube? Why don't you go and create your own? Find billionaire investors to give you seed money. Yep. Well, how do you do that when then, this happens a lot, ideas are stolen, and then millions pumped behind it to promote it as though it seems original, and then they steal your talent, who you foster. You've probably had this happen. I've had it happen with dozens of people. The picture I sent you of people working at our company, there's at least 4 or 5 there who worked for me. They were young. Other big networks in this space came in, offered them a bunch of money. I said, look, I'm not going to keep you. I give you a letter of recommendation. After 6 months, they come back.
So I wanted to...
Talking about poaching talent. I live here in Seattle area. Talent is poached every single day in the tech industry. It sucks because you get somebody up and running, and you get them just the way you want, and they're doing a great job for it. And then somebody else scoops in. An Amazon scoops in, whatever scoops in. It's kind of just business.
To address what you were just saying about these companies playing by the rules, that's completely my experience with a lot of these different companies. Is that big tech is clearly infiltrated by, you look, Alan Bakari, I think it was, got his hands on that Google video where they were crying that Trump won. Mm-hmm. This is Google. I love this. On my Wikipedia, it says Tim Pool, maintains that there's a bias in big tech against conservatives or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm like, no, I don't. I read a Gizmodo article from 2016 that said Facebook was suspending conservative news outlets.
I was in there. Yeah. That's how I met my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond. He read the article, and he was like, yeah, it's like the Chris Kyle Foundation, Ted Cruz for president, and you need some representation. I was like,
They act like it was a smear against me, that I was pushing conspiracy theories when I was literally reading the left news sources. Right. So anyway.
And Luke saying, told you.
They set these terms, these big tech companies. And then what happens is the leftist organizations clearly say the stupidest and craziest things. ChatGPT, the AI bot? Mm-hmm. It was, I think, Jack Posobiec who asked it, or he tweeted this out. When asked, did Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow spread COVID misinformation? It says, no, they didn't. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, they did. Literally, we know for a fact they did.
Yes.
And then it goes on and says, well, while they acknowledge some mistakes, no. The whole machine is skewed in that direction. What happens then is big tech company, I shouldn't say big tech, I'm sorry. Many of these big conservative outlets, I shouldn't even say necessarily conservative outlets, but many of these companies are just like, we're going to set the parameters right here because we're gonna be within the box. We're gonna be rebels in the box.
This is the problem, and I'm finding why I think Candace was pissed too, is that when we refer to companies doing thing, and what happens is the company is a hologram. It doesn't have any availability or any ability to do anything. The people, so when you're negotiating, for instance, it comes out, Steven Crowder negotiating with the Daily Wire, quote.
Right.
And that brings all these other Daily Wire employees into it. Like, they were getting messages, Candace was, Michael knows, on their chats, and they're like, now I'm involved because it was between you and Jeremy Boring,
They don't have to be
Ben
involved,
Shapiro. There's actually 4 owners to the Daily Wire: Ferris Wilkes and Caleb Robinson, owned by Bent Key Ventures. So you're only in negotiation with 4 people. If we stop saying YouTube is doing this, we're going to get a lot more accurate in the people. Who's doing it? Who's using YouTube as a filler?
Yeah.
I want to know. And also that leaves out unnecessary collateral damage.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, it's like they send out on YouTube, you know this, they send out representatives to conservatives, and they're patsies for the higher-ups. But when you get coming back to you time and time again, you know, if you did what company X, if you did what company, meaning big conservative companies who have meetings with them, if you did that, we might be able to get you remonetized or at least not suspended. And that's what, I mean, this is the thing.
Is there any examples you could give us about key issues specifically about that?
Yeah, anything
Super
relating,
good
you know,
question
back
right
in the
there.
day on trans issues. You know, for example, we had a character like we did for a long time. Trenny Bain was a character that we did. It was Bain Dark Knight series, and the whole idea was an uprising, you know, Arkham Asylum against YouTube. They said you can't do that anymore. There was one where they said you can't sell off-site the socialism shirt that we had, which wasn't even on YouTube. The socialism was for fig shirt. You don't want to know the funny story about that? I've never seen John laugh so hard. Was we started selling on the website because socialism is for figs. It's a play on words. You may not like it, but people also need to know Che Guevara executed gays, right? This is a guy, if when you wear a Che Guevara shirt, you're wearing a Hitler who was less successful in being charismatic and duping people. Not saying Hitler was successful. I'm saying he was a genocidal maniac. So, of course, we're mocking him. YouTube says, well, you can't do that. That shirt is hate speech. It's off the platform. So what we ended up selling at the Crowder shop was a mystery box. And I get a call from one of the most senior executives at YouTube.
And he wonders why he gets in trouble.
We know what's in the box. I was like, I'm thinking someone in Silicon Valley is opening it like, and so we stopped selling. But that's something that's completely off the platform. But the point is, right, you need to be, there needs to be someone standing up to these giant organizations. And when you say, like Jeremy said in his video, well, you know, we only met with Susan Wojcicki once, and we were really going in and defending Steve. I said, okay, hold on a second. Are you the biggest, most influential, fastest growing conservative network in the world, or did you spend time going in and fighting for the little guy and were completely ineffectual? You can't have both. One of those things is true. The inconsistencies are the issue here, and that's a tactic of the left. Here's, I fully expect them to come out and say, this is a lie, this is a lie, switch the narrative from the phone call, switch the narrative from the money, now that that's gone. Probably a hit list like the Vox Adpocalypse, probably get personal. This is why people don't speak out. This is why good people don't run for office, and we shouldn't be doing that on the right. Bless you.
Thank you. I want to pull up this this story right here. Story. I want to look at this email that you've shown me.
Yeah.
The Daily Wire tried poaching one of your employees, and what would make this significant is if this happened after your negotiations.
Yes,
okay, so after you're talking,
and it's not the first time that this has happened.
But real quick. After you were talking with the Daily Wire about potentially doing a deal, they reach out to your employees. And I'm looking at the email right here saying that, you know, they came across the social media manager. Hey, they got a great opportunity. Join the new counterculture. It says they emailed your staff and said, come work for us instead.
Right.
That doesn't not sound like something a friend would do.
No, and the only reason I'm showing you that.
Something that's really wild about this industry is it's so small from the standpoint of there are only a handful of really good creators, a handful of really big creators. And this world is so incestuous. They all know exactly who's putting deals together, who's funding this, who's doing this, who's got the ad dollars coming in from this. It's like it's inbred almost, right? It's inbred because it's so small and the community is so small that everybody's poaching from one another. And, you know, I find it super interesting.
I'm not going to be showing receipts from third parties who are blameless victims, right? Gary said you can show that. He came right to me and said, hey, look, this came up. I said, hey, they'll probably offer you more money, and I'll write you a letter of recommendation. He said, no, I know you guys want to be monetized. And the issue that took place in the conversation, it might even be in the one that you saw where I said, like, they're like, well, you know, we do have a social media department. I said, well, we do it here. That was the one thing that we talked about maybe splitting, I think, at some point. And I said, I have Gary, and he's awesome. So he was named.
How long after you did that call about the term sheet, did they send this email?
I don't know the day. I know it was definitely after the talks completely fell through. So you probably have the timeline, but what happened is there was a week where the election happened, right? Rumble, because we were banned from YouTube going into the election, which I'm sure was a chance, just happenstance. And then we did that, and I thought I was really kind of securing the future, for my children. Because I'm like, okay, there are other players in this space. People kind of know I'm a free agent. Our performance on election night is going to be big because last time it was the biggest election stream ever, right? It was like 16, 17 million people across the platforms. We're only doing it on Rumble. So wanted to do that, and I was really nervous. Okay, it went well. Then I did 2 shows at the Ryman, the original Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. And some Daily Wire people came out, and the shows went really well. I mean, if people need, eventually I'll release a special, but if people need to see the clips, standing O to both shows, and Dave was there and did fantastically well too. And you think, okay, you can't do any better.
Ruben?
No, it was just me and Dave.
Oh, Dave Landau.
Dave Landau, yeah.
Sorry.
No. I guess it could have been Ruben. I guess he does comedy stuff with Peterson. Yeah, Landau. And then after
you gave me that look.
No, I was very confused. I thought that there were hallucinogens in here from because that's the first thing he asked me. He's like, "Have you ever taken hallucinogens?"
Said it wasn't in there.
Yes. Then after that,
trusted you.
So
after that, we'd had those conversations about like this. These are the sticking points, right? And please, like. We got to figure out a better way to do this because it stifles the movement. After that, it was, we're not going to be able to come to any kind of terms. And that was for sure after that conversation. I made one final plea.
After that conversation.
Final plea, and that called like, just take me off the table. Promise me you won't do it to other people. And the question is, look, was your understanding when you invest money, when you subscribe, was your understanding that all conservative talent out there, nearly all, are penalized if they're demonetized? Was that your understanding? Was that your understanding that then they are penalized if they are suspended? Then they are penalized if they don't take as many lives? Was that your understanding when you were investing in people going out there and fighting for you? Because I know the feedback that I get at these live shows with thousands of people at every event. And it's not a hard-earned dollar that I take lightly. People feel powerless. They say there's only so much I can do. At least that guy can go out and fight for me. And I'd like it to be these guys and girls, not a guy.
And for context too, it's very important. These fees pertain to strikes and bannings on the major big tech platforms, irrespective of your viewership on the alternatives we're all trying to help.
Or subscribership.
Or subscribers or sponsors. And it's demonetization too. That's
here's an important picture that should be painted. A lot of people are saying, Crowder, you recorded Jeremy. That's not what friends do. They're surprised by it. But here's what I'm seeing now. And, putting myself in the middle of this. You're
always in the middle of it,
of course, that's what I do, right? But look, you go to the Daily Wire.
Phil, no, your term sheet. Okay.
You go to the Daily Wire. They say, here's a term sheet. You go, whoa, this is crazy. Right. Hey, you can't do this. The Daily Wire then says, all of a sudden, but a few months later, Crowder registers Stop Big Con. Then he calls and secretly records Jeremy. He was setting us up. This email right here paints a different picture in that you talked with the Daily Wire and said, here's our issue. Yeah. Here's what we can't do. And they said, okay. And then sometime later, they try poaching.
No, they said, if that's the issue, this is our business model, and you don't know business.
But then they try and poach one of your employees. One of your...
And that could be an accident, but it's not the first time.
Yeah.
Well, but you said you didn't...
Crowder saying it could be a coincidence that they tried to poach his guy. Maybe he'd been in the works for a long time. Who knows? A lot of this stuff is just super subjective, right? You don't really know unless you were there. This phone call that happened between friends, let's be honest. Business between friends, bad idea. Business between family members, terrible idea. But there's so few players in this marketplace that they're kind of forced to have to deal with one another. And that's literally a large part of what we're talking about.
You mentioned him by name. And
Gary,
employee poaching is considered vulture-ish as it is, but it is business.
And by the way, there's a huge difference between employees reaching out to you in a company and you fielding it, which happens, versus going to someone who is clearly not available, who was mentioned by name, saying this guy is awesome. And Gary's hilarious because he's Russian. He was born and raised in Russia until he was 13, but he seems totally American, no accent. But then occasionally you realize like he'll say something out of context, like I can kill 2 birds and get stoned or something.
That's me. But I'm Polish.
Mixed metaphor.
So were you raised in Poland?
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. No one would guess.
They call him Lucas.
So those first few years, did you have those disconnects where people are like, "Are you not?" And you're like, "I don't understand whatever."
First few years, he still does it.
I still do it all the time. Yeah, all the time.
But look. This is the point I'm trying to make. the picture painted so far was that you all of a sudden set up this plan to get the Daily Wire, and they were blindsided by it. But it actually seems like now there was a bit of a back and forth in that you said, hey guys, I don't like this. Then they say, well, that's a business. Then they try to poach one of your employees. Then you're like, okay, this is, it sounds like.
It's been going on for years.
But
everyone in the space knows it. Everyone in the space knows it.
This is not an issue of they had a polite conversation with you and said, we're sorry, we disagree, and then you devised a plan to come after him. There was, then the Daily Wire comes and tries to poach an employee. Then you guys are like, these kind of business practices can't continue.
And it was always about the terms, and it's stupid to say that this was our plan to get subscribers. I'm sorry. Like, I get a little bit pissed off with this because that means that you didn't pay any attention at all to Mug Club Forever. That was us getting in touch with our subscribers and making sure that whatever home we went to on our own with somebody else, we were going to have access to the people that paid for our content. This was not a plan that was hatched to make sure that we could ride off into freedom and do whatever the hell we wanted with this really great email list.
It would be the hardest way
for that. We said it.
Yeah.
It was clear.
And you saw the numbers there.
It sounds like you guys are like right on the precipice of creating your own network or your own website where people pay you $10 a month and just get access to that.
And I really don't want to have to do that. Like, here's the thing, right? Wouldn't it be great if you could link arms with the self-professed, most powerful people on our side who are supposedly fighting for us? But the problem is when they say, we have no interest in doing that, you go, wait, hold on a second. Here's the good news. I bring tidings of great joy. We can get just as many viewers on Rumble as you can on YouTube. And by the way, stay on YouTube, but just don't punish conservatives for being demonetized. They go, this is the business. We know. No one else does. I don't want to start a network.
If you guys could counteroffer, what would be the things you would counteroffer right now? What deal would you guys take from a big company? Let's not just say the Daily Wire. Let's just say there's another company. What's your ideal deal?
Gerald can take. Here's the problem. I would take a deal. I would have taken a deal that was less money, and more honest, and more freedom, and not penalizing other people. He steps in because I'm like, yeah, it sounds like good money. He's like, you don't know what our expenses are, Gio. I'm like, I don't know, Gerald. You tell me.
I got a lot of different terms that you would have.
So that right there kind of encapsulates Steven Crowder's idealism. He wants something that really isn't out there. And that's why I keep going back to eventually when he gets his show all set up and his systems all in place, he's going to look at his budget and go, that offer from the Daily Wire probably wasn't that far off. That's the way I see it.
Have to negotiate, and this has been the sticking point from the very beginning, and it kind of goes back to something that you said about Candace getting these questions.
Can I grab another water?
It is just 100%. You don't start with these terms in the contract. Again, it was like, oh, it's a term sheet, negotiate. Of course we negotiate. I've been doing that. I understand that is part of the process. That's what you do in these things. But if you're going to start there and we say, hey, that's not something that should be in this movement, and you're like, well, we're not coming back to the table. By the way, after the Ryman, we were expecting them to come back and have changed that and made an offer that we could then start negotiating from. That never happened.
So this is the term sheet right here. I've got it. This is the
Is
whole
that
thing.
The first one?
I don't know.
That one that was sent, I guess, October 5th.
It says non-binding term sheet, confidential. It does say.
The only one?
No.
I got to point out for you, Stephen. It says if any of the major platforms issue a strike, you would have the fee reduced. It gives examples of the major platforms are. I'm assuming that's not limited to. In which case, it looks like they're basically saying what at their discretion they determine what a major platform is.
Yes.
And then, so if Twitter gave you a suspension, they dock your fee by 25%, even though Twitter is not a major driver of platform or host.
Right.
But you know what the good news is? Could have been clarified and put in writing. Never was.
No. And by the way, I said that the first one because that didn't look like the Daily Wire one that you were holding. I was like, did you get an offer from somebody else?
No. That's because I think we did reader view or some shit.
By the way, do me a favor. I just need to understand this because one of the arguments that was put forth is, well, this is just a standard starting point for everybody. Okay.
I don't play those games. I don't do that.
Hold on. No, but it's not just a term sheet. It's not just a term sheet. Everybody else, their production comes out of you. You knew Steven well enough to know that he had his own production team and therefore the costs would be borne by him, but everything else was just standard. And our apologies for leaving it in there because that was one of the claims that was made. This is just the standard contract, negotiating start point of term sheet that we always give to everybody. Right. It's like, yeah, but you knew Steven well enough to know he did all of his production, but then you're saying the rest of that was just standard. It's a production
company. It's a production house, right? It's everything. It's 25 employees.
It's just disingenuous, guys. It's not real.
Well, do they not know better, or is it dishonest? Let me ask you this. Do you really think, I will say this, the only thing I've said about Ben is brilliant. He's one of the smartest people I've ever known. I don't care
Certainly
what he
think so.
says, okay? I still hope the best for the guy. And by the way,
talking about Ben
for
Shapiro,
people out there,
Daily
and I
Wire.
know that they're anti-Semitic people, I've not said there's none of this controlled opposition. I 100% believe that Ben believes what he says, even if we disagree. None of that is taking place. The problem is when you demand that other people fall into line. But do you really believe for a second that Ben is so ignorant that he thinks that's $50 million a year in my pocket basketball money? Do you think Ben believes that?
He knows better.
Yeah, he said that. Is
I
that
know.
honest?
Yep.
Is that honest? Now, if someone did that with you and said, Tim Pool is a money-grubbing prick, and we offered him basketball money, and someone came out and called you a little bitch, right? and that literally happened, and you had the ability to say, and you'd seen this happen to other people behind the scenes for years, and you said, that's not going to be me. You had the ability to prove that it was verifiably false, which no one is arguing. Would you do it?
Of course. Granted, I think there's a tactical difference.
Ben Shapiro literally came out with the term basketball money. They offered him basketball money. But like whomever was on here that pointed out that Crowder is going to be producing his own show. I'm sorry, it's up in the comments there. And you basically stated, so now what? Yeah, it's kind of like, all right, so we got to figure out what those numbers are. Unfortunately, only Steven Crowder knows what that 50 million over 4 and the other 25 over 2, 75 million. Only Crowder and his dudes know what that looks like bottom line, because, they're a private company. Basically, internally, they're a private company with their production company. The Blaze probably knows exactly what that looks like. But, this it's not like we can, just punch up, well, how much does it cost him to produce a show? He kind of just talked about 50 grand for something. But what is the overall picture expense-wise on an annual basis? I don't know. And so that's why this is so fascinating, because you hear one guy say one thing and then you're like, okay, yeah, but then Ben Shapiro called it basketball money, which, where do we sit here? And we've been listening to this for a while, right? And to me, I'm like, he's right. He's right. She's got a point. Yeah. Crazy, right?
Difference between us as well, in that I think you play warrior and I play rogue. Again, over your heads, but Ian's sitting there going like, right.
I do have an original copy of Chrono Trigger. So
hell yeah, dog.
We're talking gaming.
I would just put. I would,
And by the way, he met a girl who
Right
grew up on
over
my
my
block. Apparently, I have her
I can
copy
play
for
Doom.
Super Nintendo, like Star Wars
That's about
Return of the Jedi.
yes, Elaine Stokes. Yes,
I'm surprised she didn't speak a word of English when I knew her when she was young.
Yep.
She's been holding on
Now
to
we
that
all
for a
work
little
together.
while.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean it's crazy, small world.
30 years.
My strategy would have been to poop on the contract, just being totally transparent and honest here.
Yeah.
But to bring it back, like what would be the perfect contract? What conditions? what terms did you guys agree to?
I want to address.
I'll tell you the contracts I would offer someone else.
I want to address what you were saying about, would I prove him wrong if I could? I suppose what happened differently for us.
So was that vitriolic?
If it was that vitriolic.
Yeah.
I didn't. Granted, the Daily Wire outed themselves, and they said it was because people assumed it was them. After I had a conversation, with the Daily Wire, my determination was they do business in a way that I don't agree with, but I like
Crazy
that
and
they're
wild.
doing things that have a cultural impact in the positive. Thus, I'm going to build my thing the way I think it's supposed to be.
Right.
Let them make the things they make with the people who agree with being a part of that. And hopefully, even if they're not 100% in the right direction, if it's 1% producing cultural net positive, I'll just have to be the force that pushes it.
But what if it's 80% net negative?
That's your view, right?
I don't know. I think, well, again, the view should be of the people the investors in our case, right? There are no other investors, right? I own 100% of my company. We've entered into licensing agreements where people have temporary ability to monetize the subscribers and the content therein, right? We still have all the content when we left the Blaze. We still have that because there was a period of time. The issue there is what we're talking about is penalizing people on behalf of big tech. Was that your impression? Because that's not the impression that's given. And you know what? There are a lot of things that you can get. And I really want this to be done. Just pledge that we won't penalize people on behalf of big tech. We can talk about it. Hey, there are ways to do it with Rumble. I know you've talked about a decentralized solution to people subscribing, right? And I think there's good with that. There are also issues because people have so many different places where they have to pay right now and they kind of want to get one portal. Hopefully there's a way to figure that out. Here's what you do as far as a contract. If it's someone who's coming in as an entire production house, I've been having contracts negotiated. You said you were in SAG 2000. So I was in since I was 12 years old and had agents negotiating contracts and term sheets. I know what a term sheet looks like. Every time we do a live show, by the way, I'll be in Louisville, Kentucky, February 10th. I think we're adding a show on Thursday. You can go buy tickets on the website. Every time I do a live show, there's a term sheet. And the term sheet is, this is what happens with live shows. Okay? There's a minimum guarantee.
Yeah.
And the minimum guarantee is no matter 5 people show up, if it's, your dad and your Aunt Tilly, we pay you this, and then there's a percentage of the gate. And if you want more, if you're willing to bet on yourself, right, you say lower that guarantee and take a higher portion of the gate. I go in and say, don't give me a guarantee, and I'll just take the gate. And they sell their drinks, right? They end up making more money. We're giving them less risk. What you do is, Luke, to answer your question, you can present it if it's a production company where you want them to incur all of the risk, all of the costs. Okay, you do a rev split where there's upside for both sides. Or some people want security, right? We have 1099s who work at the company. We have employees. Some people want security, and so they become salaried, and they get health insurance. They get a 401k. You can provide 2 options. You can do a rev split, or you can do an employee agreement for people who want to do that. In this case, they want to do employee type constraints. And again, none of this matters as far as I can't be clear enough. I said, take me off the table here. The issue is entirely the enforcement of punitive practices through mandate at the most powerful company. But you can do it those ways. And there are a million ways to skin a cat. You can make that work. And that's the way that it's done. We both know in the liberal cesspool that is Hollywood, where everyone is out trying to screw somebody. They still know that you can't do that. They still know that that's not enforceable.
The decision to remain monetized rests with the creator and always stays there. It's not a part of the model because to your 51%, yes, that's fine unless we fast forward 5 years. 5 years from now, Daily Wire is undisputed #1, 5 million subscribers, and big tech turns the switch. Would it be better to course correct a little bit now with a little bit of pain, or would it be better to wait until it's too late?
It's better to do it now because Microsoft could buy Daily Wire tomorrow. Yeah. It's very dangerous to consolidate.
That's a really good point.
Or BlackRock.
BlackRock could buy Rumble tomorrow.
Well,
Rumble is not safe. It's a private company that's all centralized.
Well, that's they're a public company. And here's the one thing that I like about because look, Rumble tweeted out like, "Hey, we offer these non-restrictive contracts."
Rumble?
I think it was it.
So we're kind of talking about the future of conservative, whatever you got going on here, conservative media, right? So we're talking about, do you take that run now? Do you take that contract now? Or is the gamble later? Do you keep gambling that you're going to grow? Or do you take the basketball money now? Because you don't know what could happen. That could be said about any business, though, as well. There are some businesses that are more stable. And that's why I've always kind of been like, you know what? I'm probably just going to stay independent, because then I can, like today, we're going to do a 2-hour-long podcast. We're about halfway done. Do you think if I worked for anybody else and I did, normal 25-minute segments, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to live stream for 2 hours today, do you know how well that'd go over? You're doing what? So I want the freedom to do whatever I want to do. So does Steven, but he's also working on a big, big playing field where the rules are already kind of written. And so now he is, we're getting into the weeds of some of these details. He said, she said, okay, whatever. But then Crowder's point is he may need to go out and, do his own thing so that he can protect these other smaller players coming up. And I'm kind of like, all right, well, I'm listening, but what you're saying, may not have long-term validity, just from the standpoint of he's making the argument that it's not about the money. It's always about the money. Somebody over here was 100% correct. It's always about the money. Chuck E. Cheese, thank you for the info on the gaming. I learned something there. When these guys start talking about gaming, I have no idea what's going to happen. It's kind of like, whatever. Let's keep going here.
France? Right,
Yeah,
Rumble's
I
a
think it was
public
France.
company. Think of the balls it takes. Right, think it was the government of France said you have to start changing content, and they said, right, when you're a public company and you tell an entire government, fine, ban us. That's the kind of balls that people are like. And these people, and by the way, the guy who runs is a Canadian, the CEO. He's not even. I don't think he's super conservative. He just sees the writing on the wall. Why did those people get it? Why? Because he's been under I would say, tyranny now. When you see someone like Trudeau, just because he does blackface and he can't throw a jab doesn't mean that he's not a tyrant, right? People have lived under that tyranny. They go, we can't let that happen here. So Rumble gets it. They tell France to go fornicate themselves with a wire brush. But the people who take money from hard-earned conservative Americans who are wondering how they can fight back, how they can have a voice, don't see it. Do they not see it? Or is it the business model, right? You can't have both.
That's what I'm wondering. Did you feel like your buddy, and then what I mean your buddy, like Jeremy, you and Jeremy are friends or whatever, but that he lowballed you, he knows your value and he lowballed you, and you're like, dude, if you're going to do that to me, I'm going scorched earth.
No,
I'll
no,
do everything
no,
legal in my.
It wasn't the lowball. It wasn't the lowball. It was the hey, look, prompt. Look, let's just sit down and talk about how you can do this without mandating through punitive practices against not some, according to him in his video, all conservative content creators. Let's find a different way because there's no future in this. There's a lot there that's permissible, right? In business, money, I get it. Yeah, lowball, sure. And you know that. Everyone knows that. But what's really hard to deal with is there was a period, like I talked about with Gerald Note, where I was super depressed, felt kind of hopeless because this has been a long time in the making.
It's a good chat room.
And you knock on
Thanks,
one door and you have
everybody,
people
for
you think are
doing the chat.
on your side. You know, it's no, wait, this is how it works.
Show the
and then
algorithm where we're
because
at.
you don't see behind, the curtain.
Or something like
You
that.
hear that we're fighting back against big tech, and you see this offer, and you go, oh, there's no future here. And the response to this is not right has always been money, 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 money. I can't stress it enough.
So
it's not about the money.
So what is the future in your mind then? What needs to be done?
What first needs to be done is people to mean what they say. And if you are taking money from conservatives out there under the guise that you are fighting big tech, start fucking fighting big tech. Start with that, okay? I don't know about and I know that when I say this, by the way, they're going to be.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
4 or 5 hatchet men coming from the Daily. I understand that, by the way. Have you seen anyone else in these videos? This is the first time Gerald's been here because I'm like, look, you handle the finances more than I do. It's me. It's 2-on-1, it's 3-on-1, it's 4-on-1. And gee golly, we thought we were friends. And you know what? I'm not going to call anyone a bitch. I mean what I said. Andrew Klavan's one of my all-time favorite people. I think Jordan Peterson is unbelievable. I'd go to the wall for that guy. I think Ben Shapiro is brilliant. Never met Candace Owens. Michael
Those
Knowles,
guys
my
all
experience with him, I
just
don't know him as well. I really like him. I
took him
like
to
a lot
task.
of these people.
Good singer.
Is he a good singer?
Michael, he played guitar too.
Well, he has that voice. I mean, Andrew Klavan, he told me he had that voice since he was like 6, where he's like, well, teacher, on parent-teacher appreciation day, I'll give you an apple. And they're like, this is how you talk. And it's genuine. It's genuine. Here's the thing. Keep doing it if that's what they want. I'm not going to, at a certain point, my tolerance will run out. So send 4, send 5. At a certain point, don't send anyone you expect back in one piece.
But what will you make, right? You talked in the beginning, you were saying something about it's hard for everyone to just pay all across the board randomly to different people. Like if you want to support a creator, you're on one website, you're on another website.
Yes, yeah.
So how would you?
It's a subscription fatigue, right? You have the same with like Netflix and Hulu. So can I answer your question with a question to Crash Test Dummies here? That doesn't.
You guys are talking about Steven Crowder.
He does look like one.
I think that's
There you
what
go.
this
I
is.
love that they're
It's gonna be
national
$20.
trends.
What's your question?
My
for?
question for him is because he said like this might be a solution. You have this
$29.99 a
idea,
month. It's a bargain.
or you're creating an actual product. I don't know all of it.
Yeah.
Of a decentralized way to subscribe to people because and also people who get to keep their subscribers. By the way, this isn't Daily Wire. It is industry standard in the conservative sphere. You don't get to know how many subscribers you have. You don't get to take them with you, which only hurts people who are paying if you end up leaving, if you end up not being with a network.
Yeah.
That's industry standard, not Daily Wire. Again, Stop Big Con was not just about Daily Wire. You don't even know. You don't even get to reach them. That is the standard, not just there. And you mentioned something before the show, and I'm a little ignorant as to what it is. Forgive me. You said it's like this decentralized ability for people to sort of an anti-Patreon is what I think you said.
Yeah, it is just basically doing what Patreon does, but without a Patreon middleman. So it'd be a piece
This
of
is
software
interesting.
packet that you download, install on your computer, and then you can start uploading videos through the software packet to Rumble as a server or YouTube as a server,
Okay.
Unlisted, the videos. And then people would go to your website where you have a front end hosted with this packet, and they can subscribe $10 a month. Then they can see on your website the unlisted videos from the other sites. It's pretty rudimentary. It's what Tim's using, a system like that. He's not using the tech.
That doesn't sound rudimentary at
Well,
all.
so
That
listen.
was like Chip Douglas with a remote control.
Here's-
Like
here's-
it's basic cable stuff.
here's the
It's
idea.
incredibly complicated.
Here's the idea. Here's the idea.
To pull off.
The idea right now is that you're an independent creator.
Yeah.
You go to Patreon, you go to Locals.
Yeah.
You go to someone else's company, you sign up, there's the infrastructure, you give them 10%.
Right.
I've done the math. 10% is steep, but they're trying to run a business, have employees. So I get it.
Sure.
So what we were talking about this a long time ago. Make the software. You get your own server space, your cost. You get your own domain, your cost. You install that software for free, open source, and boom, instantly your website is a clone of a subscription service website with an easy-to-use backend for you that networks with anyone else who uses it. You can also blacklist certain sites from your site if you're like, I don't want my site to recommend this,
Skittles and rainbows.com.
Exactly.
Like
very nasty stuff right there. So, or it's just you let the algorithm recommend whatever the recommend, like similar words and phrases. So what this does is, if I go to your website and you want to be included in the network, people will see, and this could be bad for business. Some people might want to do it. They will see like recommended Timcast IRL episode with Steven Crowder and be like, oh, I'd like to watch that show too. Creating. It's so YouTube's one of the powerful things about YouTube is that it recommends shows after shows.
Yeah.
And that recommendation
Every single time I
algorithm.
watch one of my shows, it's Seth Meyers.
Oh, wow.
Right.
We
And
get
so
Lex
YouTube,
Friedman.
This is my
Do you?
point.
Yeah, everyone gets
That's
Lex.
way better than Seth Meyers.
So that's one thing that my channel over the last year has basically, I don't want to say been shadow banned, but it's not being pushed out to new audiences. You can tell when it gets pushed out just a scooch because our numbers just skyrocket. But for the large part, my content only goes out to the existing subscribers, and we're having a really difficult time gaining traction with new subscribers. So the best thing you guys can do, if you care about this channel staying around for a while, News for Reasonable People, is to share content. If you see a video you like, share it with somebody, because that's how to get it out.
But
Lex Friedman's good.
This is the point.
Thank you
It
for
used
those
to
that
be
already
legitimate. It used to be that if you watched Crowder, you get recommended similar shows or more Crowder. Now they're driving everyone away.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're taking away the natural networking marketing value.
Yeah.
So our idea was create it decentralized. No one gets a cut of your money. That's your business. You got to spend money on your bandwidth. That's your business.
Sure.
But it's free, open source, and it rips away from the centralization and creates.
So I really like that. Now, here's the one thing too that Gerald kind of knows is what's always been true north to me is the viewer, right? As a person watching, is how do they get the most value for their money? And there are so many places to subscribe right now.
It's too fragmented.
Yes, and but I also understand the danger of a centralized power.
Right.
But if there would be a way for, kind of like you were talking about with Maker, for there to be an alliance where maybe there's some kind of a price break or discount if you get to subscribe to these other creators, right? So that you don't have to do $6 on a Patreon here, or $5, on locals here. And by the way, nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying people feel like there's this payment fatigue, this subscription fatigue. If we want to fight the left, right? Think about just what they call the stream with Batista. He's in this like canoe, talking about like Disney, ESPN, and what is it? Disney and Hulu. Right? That's a value added. And I think this is what was so disheartening was really hoping that we could do that in the conservative movement where people can kind of get access to a portal and support the people that they want to. I don't know that it's possible. But if there would be some way for the because for the viewer, what's ideal is to be able to get access to more people that they want rather than having it, because the price adds up.
Right now,
that's hard.
It's like $10 for Tim, $10 for you. With this tech that I'm building, we haven't had the
$10 for mine.
subscription system
Absolutely
set up, but you could
right.
do something where it's like 10 for him, 10 for you, or 18 for both of you. Then you each get 9. You'll eventually have to take some sort of loss discount if you're going to run a packet. Otherwise, it would just be 20
Right,
for
but you would
2.
hit critical
It's hard
mass.
to figure out that number,
You hit critical
too.
mass.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to figure it out. But there are ways to do it. Obviously, people on the left have done it to some degree. The worst thing that I will say, the thing that really is YouTube. Is it YouTube Red or YouTube Premium? What do they call
Premium.
it now?
Yeah, it
I
used
tell
to
you,
be Red,
I tell
right?
you what though. You know what sucks about it? That's actually a really good deal. You get YouTube Music, which replaces Spotify. You get
absolutely
YouTube TV, which replaces cable and Sling, and you get HBO Max. You're like,
But they're
dude,
subsidized.
Yes,
No.
they are subsidized. But guess what? So are these companies on the right.
All right.
But they're subsidizing it in a way that is
I'll tell
not
you.
foundationally
Somebody was
sound
talking about
for
big oil
move
money.
forward.
Let me tell you something that really.
Daily Wire.
I feel like this should
I-
require
I-
hallucinogens going for like,
My-
man,
I'm
I'm so happy to if you're
This-
interested. We'll
something.
go to a mountain somewhere. Or something.
He's game.
Let me tell you guys something that is kind of crazy to me. And people don't believe. There are no investors in Timcast. There's only me as the principal of the entire company, sole owner, sole board member, president, CEO, treasurer, chairman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their staff, I have a COO. We've got people who work here, but I own literally all of it, control all of it with no outside investment. It's literally just I started
and
making.
you're not even Jewish.
Yeah, I'm
just saying
it's
as a
the
joke to
Korean.
the anti-Semites in there. By the way, we're not talking about. No one
Well,
we're
that's
talking
the
about is
point.
even Jewish.
And we
That's a point I
wondered
make
why
all the
he's been
time. There are people who have been
demonetized
successful in
since,
media
what,
who aren't. I don't know why they have that
2019, we agree
conspiracy
on?
belief.
Yeah.
But it was shocking for me to find out that these big alternatives only exist because some powerful industrialist or billionaire decided I'm going to spend money, but that money comes with their influence. Now, the only issue I have with that is that we don't know what their influence is.
And you owe.
If you come to timcast.com, the whole influence and driving force behind this is literally just me. If you're a customer here, as a member or whatever, you're supporting us, it is literally me in charge of everything. But a lot of these other companies, you don't know who's behind the scenes putting money in and saying, hey guys, I want to see this. I understand how businesses work. I understand how investment works. But you won't know.
And if you knew, it's ball retractingly terrifying. I mean that. There's some information, again, that you're not going to open third parties. It's probably going to be coming out in the next 6 months, year, that will shock people, startle people. I could tell you that, but would I have to provide receipts, and would that be a betrayal? That's the issue, right? I've given you a lot of information that you can publicly
What's he talking
audit,
about?
and I think that's
What do you
important.
think he's talking about?
I'm not going to pull people in. Like I said, Gary said you can use it. I can't
What are
show you the
the
3, 4, 5 other instances
What's the
just in the
dirty
last 2 years where that's happened. It is absolutely terrifying. But what was the crazy idea you were saying? I thought you were I thought you just came up
That
with a
was the
business plan or
crazy
something.
idea.
It seemed
No.
Oh,
It's just, I was saying it's crazy to me.
that's not so crazy. That's totally reasonable. I guess that's why I'm throwing.
No.
Like-
What's crazy to me is that we've gotten to the point we have without that
Yeah.
when seemingly no
That's
one else
true.
does.
It's really
But
easy,
here's what
too.
I want to say, Stephen.
Really
I'm
easy,
looking.
dude.
I'm looking at. I don't think it's really
To have the
easy.
website rolling with subs. I mean,
no,
there's
no,
some
no,
back.
right.
There you need like two
yeah.
people.
Oh yeah,
Hey,
and one
this
thing I should-
business
one-
is hard,
yeah,
man.
one thing
What
I
I-
should say, we've had a lot of offers too from people who like run these sort of credit card processing, these platforms, right?
Yeah.
Offering to give us better rates as well. So there are a lot of people who've come forward. Like I said, it's not about Daily Wire wasn't even the highest offer. Just to be
But
clear.
here's what I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this right in front of every single person. I think you're gonna make $100 million a year.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely insane.
I think I'm right.
But I would never demand that. Just to be clear,
You see what bar you're setting for me? Did I tell you my new job?
Yes, for crying out loud.
I-
you're trying to give him a heart attack.
I've seen your numbers. I know. Look, we've got 175,000 people watching on a show that normally gets 40 to 45,000. 130,000 live viewers, quadrupling the live viewership we get because you came to talk about something that is important to you.
Yeah.
You have people who are not only fans of your content, who are entertained by it, but also believe in you. Looking at your Mug Club numbers, I think you launch this thing. You maybe not. Look, it's gonna snowball rolling downhill. I think you launch this thing and you're making $3 to $5 million per month right off the get go.
And by the way, you mean the whole production company?
Whole production company,
Right,
not you
which-
personally,
which-
your staff, your
I'm at a
employees,
fork in
and
the
your
road.
budgets.
I'm at a fork in the road, which is
You're
you know
gonna need
I
a lot
can
of money for bandwidth. You're gonna get a lot of people to sign up.
I could walk away, and I understand this isn't lost on me. The only way people will 100% believe what I say, and that there's no ulterior motive, which is what I tried to do in the negotiations, like take me off the table. This
Yeah.
is why this is a sticking point. Is if I walk away from this forever. Is if I never monetize again, and I just go back off into the sunset. Just do stand up, maybe do a once a week show, something like that, so I can continue selling out the venues, and I could do that. And Gerald knows that I strongly considered that at one point. And I think he was the one, if I'm not mistaken, who said, like, yeah, but then if you do that, then this will just all blow over in 2 months, and it'll be the same problem. So I do have, I get the question of authenticity again, but I would ask you if this
Steven's
is the
gonna fight the
easy
good
decision,
fight.
if this is the easy route to take.
You guys are bringing up some really good points here. And what is a restream bot? So from my understanding, so you got a restream software that's connected with your OBS, which is your open broadcasting system, and you hook a camera up to a feed, up to a computer, and then you got a restream bot, and you can restream it out to, I think right now we are streaming on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, obviously, not Instagram, Rumble, I believe. That's the mechanism of the restream bot.
Could have just taken the money, shut up. Could have gone on, and I don't think it's 100 million. I think you're absolutely insane.
No, I'm not.
I think there's hallucination. I think he slipped you.
Nope.
little bit.
No, look, we know about the Daily Wire's subscriber numbers. They have, 1 million paying subscribers? It's between $7 and $13 per month to be a member there. They've talked about their yearly revenues.
Wait, it's $13 a month. Okay, I didn't-
For their video content, I believe
Yeah.
it's $13
They
a
run
month.
some promos and stuff like that, but yeah.
They have different tiers.
Right,
all
and it's
that.
like, look, I think
Luke wants to talk about the IRS. He's going to
I
have
think-
a seizure.
IRS and the Epstein Maxwell scandal.
I'm saying, for one, the easy route for you would have absolutely been sign the deal, take the money and shut up, let everyone else worry about all the problems, and go sit on the beach with a coconut and just do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But I think
Phone it in.
if you go the hard way, which running a company, especially with I think the size of memberships you're going to have, is going to be very difficult and time consuming, but just make Gerald do all the hard heavy.
Well, if here's the thing:
Sorry,
if
honey,
we
I won't be
continue,
home.
if we continue down this route, then there's got to be other people, right? We have to have
Yeah.
other shows on there. I could have, again, just gone off and done it and just kept Mug Club. But Gerald, I said, like, look.
Okay, so Steven Crowder is 100% correct here. The problem is now he's going to become that guy poaching talent. He's going to become that guy screwing the younger talent because he's going to need to make money. So, you know, I get what he's saying, but I think he's a little naive. That's just my impression. As a dude that's been in business for literally all of my adult life, into my teen years, I think he's being naive. And that's also part of his shtick, right? He's a comedian. He doesn't really care about business. He just wants things to go. He wants people to be able to develop. He wants younger people coming up to develop. But that all costs money. That all costs, you know, money. It all comes down to money. He says it's not about the money. It's about the money.
Either I'm going to leave at this point, or we can't just complain and bitch.
Yeah.
We have to do it better. And that's kind of where we are. And by the way, we still haven't decided what it is that we're going. It's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
I own 100% of Mug Club, always have. We did the Mug Club Forever, so we now know how many people are out there. You know, we were really clear. We're like, do not go to Mug Club Forever unless you are currently in Mug Club. We're going to send out, we double capped you, double opt in, culled the list, so we know. We're like, don't go. And is it a newsletter? No. Are you going to get
Okay, so he's saying he owns 100% of Mug Club. You guys are saying he doesn't own it. You guys are saying that the Blaze owns it. What's the deal there? So you Mug Club members, what's the deal? Let me know in the comments.
spam? Nothing. Any updates? Only when and where and if Mug Club returns. And this is a little bit of the young Frankenstein. Ovaltine? Nothing.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you are going to launch something independent, it's going to be Mug Club, but then you're going to add on shows. Do you think you'll be bigger than the Daily Wire?
I don't care.
No. Real question. Based on your memberships,
I'm so glad
based
Tim
on
helped
the amount
me
of
do
views
this.
you get, do you think you will be bigger than? I'm not saying this as
It would if I decided that let me answer it this way. I've wanted to be done with this by the time I'm 40 as far as hosting the show on air. The last thing you want to do is overstay your welcome, and then move to a, I wouldn't say like necessarily like a Harvey Weinstein or like a Bruckheimer, but more like a Suge Knight.
How old are you now?
35.
Okay.
Suge Knight dangled Vanilla Ice off of a third-story balcony so that he would renege on a contract. He'd say, let me out. Suge Knight ran people over with his car. He backed over a couple of people. Suge Knight, that guy's something else.
So, and I want to be able to pass that torch.
When's your birthday?
July.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to be able to pass that torch. Right now, there is no ability to, because you now
35.
realize there's no ability for people to come up and do. But it would be really hard for you to do what you do now today. You know that, right?
Yeah. And harder and harder
And it'd
every
be
day.
harder.
Yeah.
It'd be impossible for someone to
100%
do
true.
what I do. I don't want to pull the ladder up behind me. So I want to be able to move into
It's
a
already
production
been
role. But
pulled.
really, what motivates me is being able to pass that mantle and make a difference. I guarantee you, if we were to do it, it'd be within striking distance of the big boys, which I'd be fine with. But as long as we do something that we believe in, and I promise we will never demand people's YouTube monetization. We will never punish them if they are not. And it has to be something fair. And it has to be us not shortchanging the investor, meaning the people, Mug Club. It's entirely independent, paying us to fight for what they believe in. Whatever those numbers are, I'd accept them.
I'll tell you my prediction, which who knows could be worthless.
Some of this is really
Nostradamus hit
interesting.
me.
You launch subscription service, independent Mug Club. You get 300,000 hard signups at 10 or more per month. I mean, it was $10 a month for a lot of people. It's going up because of inflation, because people need raises and things like that. But let's say you did $10 a month. You're looking at like 3 million in memberships with no ad reads at all. Let's say you do programmatic reads on the podcast version, meaning you, Steven, never read a single ad. Then you're looking at another, based on your traffic, I'd estimate another $2 to $5 million per year, not per month. So right off the bat, you're looking at $40 million per year. Then here's what happens. Steven Crowder then offers big players really good contracts. No BS, no fees, none of that. Out the gate, it's a legitimately good contract that gives your business a small cut, but gives them the lion's share for the work they produce. They're going to say, I'm signing with Mug Club. The terms were incredible. I mean, Crowder's going to make money off the deal. The company's going to grow.
With the draft, with the hats.
That's right. I'm getting a lot of money. then what's going to happen is it's going to make it very difficult for the big con, these other big conservative companies, to sign these deals. When a young creator says, I appreciate the offer, it's tempting, but Crowder's offering me twice the money with no setbacks.
Yeah, I would really, really like it, genuinely, and Gerald knows this, if there's someone else in the space who handles that shit. Because I'm not a business guy. Here's the thing. I'm not a business guy.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who outpunted his coverage, right? You can go back and watch with a blue bed sheet, who was doing stand-up comedy and acting, and then had my back up against the wall, right? I would really like it if there was someone else who already has the money, who already has that ability to do it. If they can't, okay, I'll carry that torch. But, I don't know. Maybe there's someone out there. Are there enough good men and enough people left? Because that's not the best use of my time. Like, it takes a lot of time to do a Goodwill Hunting. Do you have any idea how hard it is to make Schindler's List funny when you're doing a parody? You know what I mean? It's a lot of work. That's where my time is better spent. And that's where the time, by the way, of all the creators is best spent.
Yeah.
But instead, they're being forced to make this decision. You know you're a creative type. You want to deal with numbers and back end and business. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I have to do it. I don't want to do it. I have to. So I'm building this technology. But
Right.
boring. That's what Jeremy Boring
And why
is.
do you have to do it?
Why? Because we need a new subscription service for creators.
It shouldn't fall upon you, though.
I have two questions.
you're willing
Who
to
else
do
is
it.
going to do it?
No.
Let's do it.
Exactly.
If
Not you, who, if not me, who, if not now, when.
Somebody.
That's the
Let me-
sentiment.
And shout out to Philip Fisher, the guy building this stuff. Pure genius. I'll introduce you to him soon.
And I will say to everybody listening, it's you. It will only ever be you. When you see a burning building, you think, who's going to call this in? No. No one's going to call it in. It's going to be you.
Right.
I once watched, when I was 16 years old, I saw an old lady at a bus stop flip over, land on her back, and I paused and said, I have no idea what to do. What is happening? I look around and I'm like, I got to figure this one out. And I ran full speed to a building and just screamed, call 911, a lady's hurt. There's nobody else. You can't sit back and just cross your fingers and hope someone else will take care of the problem.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be the hero of your
Tim
own story.
Ford's
I just wanted to
911.
ask.
And I used to kill terrible.
I just wanted to ask two quick questions for you guys. One, would you guys be open to doing like competitions or contests for new talent? And a lot of people are asking about Not Gay Jared in the comment section. Can you guys clear up what's happening in that situation? Some people are saying that there's an NDA.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I think Candace brought up, right? Again, there's a difference between roping in third parties versus single party consent. I think he tweeted out what happened, where he left, right? Not Gay Jared. He tweeted out that he left. It was his own decision. We did a whole send-off with him in a video montage. You know, this works with like conspiracies. And sometimes, look, there's also a middle ground where there's, for example, like, what is the email, by the way, if people are talking about shows?
I think it's creators at Louder.
Yeah, creators at Louder. So that's actually not a bad idea, a contest. If we, but the reason I didn't want to do it is because I didn't want to think that's like, hey, this is why we're doing this right now. But we do have a place where people can reach out. The challenge is, like, there's completely controlling contracts, right, that own your name, image, likeness, and your platforms that you already built in perpetuity. Okay, that's an extreme example. That's big con.
I'm reading.
Then
what
you have
guys
people
are
who are
saying,
like,
by the
hey,
way.
I have no
I wanna hear
experience.
this as well.
I've never done a show, but I really think I could do it well if you give me money. That's a situation where you'd be incurring all the risk. There is a middle ground, and I think what needs to happen is, if we do, I'm not going to be in the business of just creating shows from the ground up, but there are people out there who say, hey, look, I have a channel that's doing relatively well. I keep hitting the ceiling that is YouTube saying we need you to play this kind of ball. I'm suffering from the advertising rates, the sponsorship rates dropping across the board. And I can just be, the gasoline on that fire to back them up. Really, why would you sign with a network if they don't have your back? That's the only reason to. Otherwise, be independent, right? What is the upside at that point?
You know what you always hear here is you always hear Joe Rogan talk about it. You always hear all of these big guys talk about it. When you're just about ready to break out, but you're just like giving up on something, hang in there, stick in there. And that's what Tim Pool has also said. Just hang in there. You'll get there. It just takes a while. Don't roll over and wait for somebody with a big paycheck to come in and, dictate your life. Dictate your own terms. Be independent. You might not make as much money, but you'll probably sleep better at night. And I've always thought that kind of advice makes 100% sense, unless you're just a massive egomaniac, and most of these guys are, but they got there on their own, right? They got there on their own. Well, Steven Crowder, he's got the Blaze, and you're right, the CRT or whatever that other company was that bought the Blaze. I haven't been doing this long enough to kind of know all the ins and outs. So I appreciate your guys' information over here.
That's all we want to be. And whatever subscribers you generate, you keep. That's the only way I would be able to do it.
It's really publicity. These big networks get their faces seen, but if you can do it without that, but
So
I'm really
people are still
concerned with
asking:
perpetuity.
is there an NDA? That's what people are asking.
There are NDAs to everyone, just like here, I had to sign a waiver when I came.
Yeah.
If you come into our studio, 'cause
I mean,
you
it's standard
can't-
business practice.
Yeah,
you
it's a
can't.
standard
You
thing.
can't come in. You can't come in and tell people where the studio is.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
you
have
know, I mean,
NDAs.
you guys have had
Yeah,
that.
of course.
Yeah.
If only for location, it would be worth it.
Yeah, also because he walks around without pants half the time.
We have NDAs because we work on projects, and in order, it's really complicated. One of the simplest reasons is like we don't want you leaking information about us. Location is a good and obvious thing, but also projects we're working on cost a lot of money to do preliminary research. If someone then goes to a competitor or any other media company and says, here's what Timcast is working on and all their stuff, it just completely destroys the entire attempt at making the
course.
project.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Of course, and you can have people stealing, creative content, right? I mean, that happens anyway. This is the most common thing that happens, right? The big boys, they go, oh, that really works. Hey, let's do exactly that. Put $25 million behind it just to promote it. Now it's ours.
I was thinking about
we
these.
gotta go
Let
to
me
Super
mention
Chats.
perpetuity
That's the way it
clauses
goes.
really quick before we go to super chats, because you brought them up a couple
Bill Gates,
times.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Dog nasty
Perfect
and need to be
example.
removed immediately from modern entertainment contracts
Fair
because deep fakes. They're going to be able to take someone's perpetuity face, deep fake it to make it look real, and have it say stuff that the person doesn't agree with.
By the time I'm dead and you're going to my mausoleum,
Yeah.
I'm going to be hawking Black Rifle fucking coffee.
Lord prevent it.
Let's go to super chats. We're gonna read
Sorry for
super
the F
chats
word.
from
I like
you
it.
guys. A lot of questions for Crowder and stuff like that. And
And then
we'll
at some
just
point, I'm going to have to go to the restroom. The
you can
washroom.
go to bed.
I'm gonna go too. I gotta pee.
All right, let Luke go. Then we'll
You can't go together. You can't cross streams.
There's multiple bathrooms here. Don't worry. There's one behind you. I'm gonna go out the door. Right
Fantastic.
there.
But I mean, look, if you guys want to go together, I have no issue with that. I mean,
No, I know. You're
very
more,
liberal.
yeah, you're
Progressive
anything
company.
wrong?
Promoted by YouTube now.
All right, let's read. All right.
We can co-opt
ahead,
the rainbow
Campbell
from
fans,
God after Noah.
Red sweatshirt.
Smash the like
camel
button.
pants.
Become a member at timcast.com. We're going to record the uncensored portion once we wrap up the live portion, which I can only imagine will be a lot crazier, but we're going to read some of these super chats. We have from Bren Ben. Remember, guys, everyone agrees that you need a shotgun. Even Biden is pro firing 2 blasts outside the house. Please, for the love of God, do not fire a shotgun into the air like Biden said.
Highly illegal.
Illegal. Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I can't believe Biden incited violence. He incited people to commit crimes.
Yeah.
You could
that-
shoot it into the ground. Don't do that either. But that's the better of the two options.
He thinks it's like Elmer Fudd runner. Like
Yeah.
he's done it. Like, by the way, it's the silliest. And that shell. I mean, sorry, that whatever it is, whether it's buckshot or whether it's a slug, has to come down at some point.
Aurora Isabella says, Stephen is so hot.
Well, she's nearsighted.
or whichever part would make.
I mean,
it
I'm sitting
weird.
next here to Gerald. By the way, it's a little scary, like how giants. It's a land of Gerald, and then you saw Kevin there downstairs. My friend, he's just like really. We have a lot of big people. We just went to a Japanese restaurant here nearby, like a Japanese steakhouse.
Yeah.
And all the reviews were like, the food is great, the service is terrible. We couldn't all fit in a booth.
It was difficult.
You're at that point where
You're
everything's
very
like has to be
large men.
custom.
This has been my whole life.
I
though.
know.
I'm kind of used to it. I don't fit in.
When I shook your hand and met you, you stood up as
did?
you were doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
There's some pretty big guys.
All right, here's
like where the wild things
Kristen
are.
Baker says,
Tim Pool and
will
his crew?
Crowder's company pay his creators guaranteed big money regardless of the revenues they bring in while they let their freak flag fly?
Time out. I don't agree with the premise. Nobody said it was regardless of revenues you bring in. It just said it could not be tied to big tech monetization and being on these platforms. If you're bringing in 5 subscribers versus 500,000, that's a much different thing.
Yeah.
And sponsors versus no sponsors, that's a much different thing. Nobody said that they couldn't make money, and nobody said Steven had to be given a guaranteed production contract no matter what money he brought in. They were completely and conveniently leaving that off of the table and saying, this is a lot of money, and if you lose anything, that's not going to happen.
Do
So,
a rev split
sorry.
with upside, right? Again,
Yeah.
this is
That's
what
a fair
happens in the
point.
entertainment industry. Every time, whether it's a band at a venue, right? You do a minimum guarantee, which is going to be lower, which mitigates your risk, or you get the gate. You do a rev split with upside. You see any upside there? Is there any
Zero.
is there any portion there that says, by the way, if you actually do have the 300, which is well over 300,000 people who said we're going to be in Mug Club, if you actually do hit that, you get to share in this. Is
Yeah,
there
they
any
never-
upside
they-
there?
they
There's
offered only
zero.
negatives.
It's 100% ownership. And by the way, they're the only ones who demanded 100% of merch revenue. That's not even standard. So 100% of merch. Hey, you can do the math right now. You just saw the sponsor.
I just saw a comment that I thought was yep. I'm in no way defending the YouTube's intentional, inconsistent, and biased terms of service. All I'm saying, as long as the platform is crucial to attracting new viewers, it's unavoidable to create some YouTube suitable content. 100% correct. You have to, because you don't have the ability on your own independent platform. You've got all those people there. You've got those subscribers there. Mine's reasonabletv.com. I'm putting up a lot of content there right now, because at some point in time, my ability to produce content on the current platform you're probably watching might be minimized, shall we say. But in order to make that off, and the next comment is simple by saying, want to hear my take on this issue? Please press the link in the description, which takes you to off-site when censorship no longer applies, where censorship no longer applies, which is my private subscription. But you got to be able to get people there. Get people there. And that's what Crowder does with his almost 6 million people on YouTube, is he drives traffic to his mug club, right? And he does that all day long. So, you know, I have people say, Sean, you're censoring yourself. And, you know, I don't censor myself. And my YouTube channel got shut down. My Twitter got shut down. My Facebook got shut down. But I told the truth. And I'm kind of like, all right, how's that working out for you? So we're all walking this tightrope. There is massive censorship going on the daily. It's just, that's the fight. That's the battle, right?
Sorry, you just saw the live numbers?
Yeah.
That's what sponsors know about. How much can you guess can be generated from a single sponsor with the kind of numbers, you know, if you're doing 1.7, 1.9 million screens per show for 35 minutes.
What's the standard rate? It's like
the point is it's a lot.
Yeah.
You don't have to actually
but the point is 100% of sponsors, 100% of subscribers, 100% of merch revenue, zero upside, but 110% penalty.
Guys,
that's very different.
The premium brands charge like a $40 CPM.
Yeah.
And then what we found out 10 years ago was their view numbers were inflated because they were buying the rights to garbage network traffic views that don't matter and claiming it was a premium view.
So you know that.
So when he's talking $40 CPM, CPM is cost per M, which M stands for 1,000. That is like $40 for the cost of 1,000 impressions. He's talking about ad revenue. And then you've got the CPR, which is the revenue, which is what's actually paid to the content creator, which is usually a number that is smaller.
What I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you know it's a problem in our industry, right? And you know that then sponsors get churned and burned.
I think it's fraud.
Yeah.
And you know that it happens, right?
Yeah. So this was a big problem. Sponsors were like, the return isn't there. And they're wondering why they start laying all these people off from these digital media companies. It's like, look, man, if the sponsor thinks they're buying gold standard view, but for every 10 views, 1 is gold standard and 9 is like clickbait garbage.
Right.
They're wasting money, and I think it's fraud. But
there needs to be some conservatives who are focusing on quality over quantity, right? You want one punch knockout power. You don't want to all. Some people can be volume punchers. Some people can be power hitters. You need to be able to allow for both. That's all.
We got a very important one. We got to read more. Sure, go for it. Northern Liberty Group says, can Stephen just say one good thing about Canada? I'll take Alberta or anything. There are real conservatives and patriots up here, and we did have a rebellion against the Brits. It just failed.
That's a big ask.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Look, now it is, but I will say this. A lot of people don't know bagels came through Montreal first.
Really?
Bagels?
Yep.
Where'd they come? Where from?
But
Well,
that's
yeah,
not a
obviously I'm
good
not
thing.
saying it's original, but I'm saying it came through Montreal as opposed to New York. If not for Montreal, there would be no bagels in North America.
Well, that would be better.
That's our French connection.
Yeah. No, I will say this.
There'd be less fats.
Best restaurants in the world in Montreal, probably pound for pound. And there are a lot of great Canadians. We could probably get into the uncensored version. It'll be boring here. But if you look at the Quebec separatism, a lot of that is very similar to the taxation without representation and a rugged sort of individualistic spirit. But then they also wanted to have the language police. You know about that? La Ligue des Langues, where literally...
the Spaghetti Gate. You know Spaghetti Gate?
Is this about a restaurant or a diner?
Yeah, it was an Italian restaurant,
Yeah.
and spaghetti was spaghetti, and the language police said, why isn't it in French?
That's not French, it's Calice, or like, it's Italian. Like, we don't care. Spell it
Right.
spaghetti with an E.
Yes. They said, put spaghetti in there, like, but there's no French for it, and they were
Right.
like, doesn't matter. You have to have it in French.
It was a language police. By the way, also a lot of French Canadians, horribly racist.
Have you seen the skit, the language police skit that went viral? It's 2 guys are in like an alley and they're like talking, and the cops walk up and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they're like, "What?" And like, hands against the wall. They're speaking French. They're like, against the wall or whatever. I can't say it. And you know,
I don't expect you to be trilingual.
No, but they put the guys up against the
I do
wall.
speak French, yeah.
And then they're frisking him, and then he pulls out a bag of weed and he goes, sorry. And he puts it back. And then he keeps going and he goes, what's this? And he pulls out an English dictionary and he goes, ha ha. He's like, that's not mine, I swear.
That sounds about right. It's funny, actually, like you talk about that, like, no, I do speak French. It was actually, I learned to read and write
I don't want to waste your time.
French.
These guys
first.
kind
I
of go
spoke
on to a
both.
bunch of random
They thought I was learning
topics here.
disabled.
I would just
They
assume
thought I
I'm
was an
going to hit
idiot
stop
up
here,
until the fourth
and I'm
grade
going to go over
because
here,
I had
and
to
we're gonna
do
talk
the
about
rule
what
in
you guys are
Canada,
talking
and it
about.
comes from something they call.
And we'll just kind of do, if you guys want to ask me questions, what I think here, or just ask me random questions, I'm just going to see what you guys are talking about, because there has been a lot of discussion here. Let's just pick one. It's not about what is or isn't YouTube friendly. Take Dark House podcast, and how they would discuss with experts in medical fields information about different treatments regarding certain virus. Yeah, so I got my first warning was on a virus, and then it kind of went downhill from there. So when you get a warning, as a content creator, you're like, all right, okay, well, so they're on to me about that. And the warning is I said a statement that a ton of other people had said, but then all of a sudden it became this, well, you're a denier now. And so it was like, no, actually, I'm reading a news story from a very verifiable source. And I read that story, and warning. And the warning doesn't really come off. Warning always stays there. And then you work your way into a strike. And first strike is a week. Second strike is 2 weeks. Third strike is you are done. You are out. Gone. Your channel gets eliminated. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and there's a lot of content creators trying to figure out how they can get their information out there and not self-censor. And that's what I struggle with every single day. And we talk about it here all the time. Is this a storyline that I can share on regular social media? Or is this a storyline that needs to go on Rumble and go on the private channel? And I'm going to shamelessly plug my channel right now. It's reasonabletv.com. It's $10 a month. I put a lot of content on there because a lot of what I cover is crime, and it has to do with, some drug addiction and some really hardcore stuff at times. Some of the news stories that I read are just like, oh my word. Or they might have to do with the virus, or they might have to do with something. There's one aspect in there that I can't have the exposure on, in regular channels. So I'm putting that content on reasonabletv.com, and I've got a bunch of subscribers, and I'm super happy with the way it's going, but it's not enough to make a go of it. And with the way this is all going, and most content creators do not have the ability to do what I'm doing because they either don't have kind of the oversight scope of, all right, here's how you do this, or they don't have the ability, let's spend XYZ on this, let's spend XYZ on this, and we'll see how it works out. They've got budget constraints at this level of subscribers that I have, which is like 67 or 68,000 people. Now, on my other platforms, I'm able to, I've got other stuff going on. Rumble, we're getting a fair amount of activity on Rumble, but there again, there's not very many eyeballs on Rumble, right? There's just nobody's paying to see content on there. We do make some money. We do make some money on the actual, everybody calls this a podcast, but this is literally a vodcast, right? This is video. So podcast is the audio, just MP3 only. It's not MP4, which is video. So we do make some money, but it's very little money because there are so many audio podcasts out there, and we're syndicated on, Spotify, Apple, all of those platforms. And, there's so many big other podcasts out there that are just killing it that it's really hard to make a go of it. But I'm just going to keep on going and doing my own thing. But if you wanted to support me, reasonabletv.com is the website. You go in there and there's stuff in there, and we'll be doing more stuff down the road. But for me, creating my own website and my own subscription service is also, it's not primarily a way to generate revenue. It will be down the road, but it's also a back-end escape valve. Because when the heat came down kind of over this last year, especially around election time, weird, right? Got a strike right before the election for a video that I'd had up for 3 months. That, you know, that same video is up on other channels and it's still there. And but I got a strike right before the election. I mean, it must have just been weird coincidence, right? Kind of like Steven Crowder talking to us about, they're poaching. What was it? Gerald, not gay Gerald? I can't remember which one. He's got two, right? So funny how he just totally identifies them as such. And he wonders why he gets banned. He wonders why he gets demonetized. So some of these issues I understand far better now, but some of them I'm still pretty murky on. Let's see what else we got going on here today. Great content today. Thank you, Sky Troop. We're trying. I may do a deep dive on a bunch of these content creators. If you guys would want to see that, I'm down for that as well. I didn't know how this would go. I didn't know if I'd have 2 or 3 people talking, but I literally last Friday night, I was at the gym and I started watching some of this stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are disclosing a lot of information. So I watched the Ben Shapiro content, his reaction. He was just Ben Shapiro, just rat-a-tat-tatting. Is that guy even a human? Is he even human? Because it's so funny when somebody will ask him a question at one of these debates and you'll see him like he half stalls for a second, right? He stalls. And that is his random access memory. That's his RAM taking in the question and bringing all of this information into the front of his cerebral cortex or whatever he's doing. And then all of a sudden, these people will kind of laugh and giggle at him because he looks like, he doesn't, he looks like he's a kid and he looks better now. But when he started doing this stuff, he looked really young. People kind of laugh and giggle in the audience. And then he starts just this scorched earth argument that at the end of the day, there is nothing left. The jungle is cleared with his argument. And people are just sitting back going, oh, well, I don't really have much to say there. Some wild stuff. So I covered Ben Shapiro. I watched, I should say, Megyn Kelly, Black conservative. I wouldn't mind doing responses to all that, but I'm just not sure if this is going to be a evergreen enough topic. Are we going to be talking about this forever? Is this going to blow over? It kind of feels like things are fundamentally changing. It does. We've got major changes going on. And I keep waiting for the ball to drop with Fox doing something kind of crazy. It's about time, right? One of my topics that I'm going to be doing a podcast on here really soon is how Fox is just dominating CNN in the ratings. I don't know if you guys have seen that at all, but that's not a fair fight at all. Those numbers it's basically 3-1, right? And CNN is absolutely getting crushed. Let's see what else we got here. You live in Muckleteal, but work on Painfield and Everett. That's just up the street. Just up the street from me. I've been by Painfield many times appraising over the years. You can keep the drugs, Rebecca. All right, yeah. People always recognize where you are and think that everybody around you is on drugs. I've got my kid, Kieran, who was on earlier. He was talking about, Dad, downtown Seattle really isn't that bad. He's spending a lot of time in downtown Seattle, the North End. And he's like, Dad, you just can't go out after midnight and you can't go around the Blade. Everybody knows that, but everything else is fine. And I'm kind of like, well, these news stories, son, that I'm seeing are telling a different story. And when you've got big businesses that are kind of leaving and you got a movie theater shutting down, you got Nike Town shutting down, and you got Amazon not renewing leases, there's stuff going on. Southern California here, Yakima. Samantha Taylor, you had a shooting yesterday. You had a wild shooting in Yakima. I watched that news story and I'm like, ugh, 21-year-old just capped 3 people randomly and not good. Sean, way off topic, but any comment on the King County prosecuting attorney Lisa Mannion's new agenda yet? Yes. How about I'll do a podcast on that? What do you think about that? If she does what she is saying she's going to do, she is saying they're going to identify the people that are committing the shootings and they're going to go after them and arrest them. Something that I've been saying can be done. Portland knows the 200 people. They've got it identified down to 200 people that are responsible for the vast majority of gun violence in Portland. And yeah, but shootings and murders are still off the hook down in Portland. So the authorities know who's responsible for a lot of this stuff. Can the prosecutor actually get the police and the judges to prosecute these folks? Number one, arrest them, put up some good cases, and get these people behind bars. Because I'll tell you what, the optics are not gonna look great, if you know what I'm saying. The folks that we're going to be arresting, the optics on that are going to be difficult for the media to handle. That's all I'm going to say there, but I will throw that one in. I didn't know if you guys cared about that. Let's see. I didn't want the drugs. I want to study advanced physics. Goes to jail for disturbing the peace. Yeah, that's not good. Southern California. Sean, okay, we did that one. Someone said debatable. Call the thought police. Don't feed the Mogwai. CNN equals collapsing news network. CNN, what is going to happen? Jeff, how we doing, by the way, buddy? What's going to happen with CNN? You know, they're really struggling. I watched a little bit of, who was it the other day that I watched? Bill Maher, because he's being offered up as maybe one of the three, Trevor Noah, Bill Maher, and somebody else. I don't know. They're trying to compete with Greg Gutfeld on Fox, which is really interesting because he is relatively new to the space. CNN, since Orange Man Bad left office, has just tanked. It's just tanked, which I find super interesting. You know, because they had such good viewership there for so many years, but they can't seem to right the ship, even though Jeff Lick, their current CEO, is saying, you know, he's fired a whole bunch of people and he's moved shows here and there. And you've got Don Lemon doing, you know, a 9 a.m. segment, and he's talking with some of his friends, and you got all this change up at CNN, and it doesn't seem like there's a pathway to them getting their viewership back. There doesn't seem like there's the ability, because their way of doing the news, to me, is just so disingenuous. It is so opinion related versus fact. Now, you might say that about Fox as well. And I throw that out there as the two, you know, kind of big players. We spent this whole podcast talking about basically Daily Wire and to some extent Tim Pool, but there aren't a lot of other independent players in this arena. Talk about Blaze, you know, Blaze Network. Okay, yeah, they're in there. You know what's interesting? There has been zero discussion about Dave Rubin and Locals.com. Now, Locals got bought by Rumble, and so, you know, you got that transition going on. I haven't heard Dave Rubin's name in this at all, and he's a pretty significant player, or has been, in this space. What's going on there? Do any of you guys follow Dave Rubin? I mean, I know he's a little bit older, and a lot of what we're seeing, with the exception of Joe Rogan, is we are seeing young bucks. I refer to them as, sorry ladies, but big swinging dicks, because these are guys, you look at a guy like Steven Crowder, he's a pretty big guy, right? He's 35 years old, peak testosterone production. These guys are at that age where they're going hammer down on their careers. Whereas I'm a little bit more like, this is my third career. I want to be able to do this for a while. And I could see talking into a microphone from a nursing home. I mean, I really can. How much fun would that be? How funny would that be? Well, my kids put me in a home, and my kids are always threatening to put me in a home. We're going to put you in a home. That's what they used to tell me in high school when, you know, I'd actually have a disciplinary moment or something. We're going to put you in a home. Couldn't you see just a little podcast set up in a home? And all right, I'm going to wheelchair my way out down the hall, down to the lunchroom. We're going to be doing a live stream at 1 p.m. That's in 45 minutes from now. That'll give me time to get there. I could see doing that. I mean, you know, microphone abuser, right? Somebody was talking about Green Day the other day. Did you hear about Seattle running out of room for dead people because of the overdose death in the city? Yes. So I am doing a live stream from a GoPro. I'm pointing at it right up there. And I live streamed that yesterday. And so that I'm hoping that that'll come out today. But I did notice that Tim Pool released that podcast yesterday. So we've got so many overdose deaths in King County that the King County health officials are like, we've got a little bit of an issue here. We don't have enough room in the King County morgue to house all these people. They are literally reaching out to nursing homes and like, hey, you got any space for temporary storage of dead body? Do you remember during the pandemic when the morgues were backing up because you had so many people that were dying during a pandemic? Imagine that. Shouldn't laugh, but they were literally talking about, I think they were going to use like parking garages because the lower you went, the more the air is, cooler. And so you could put a lot of dead bodies down there. And that's what they were doing. King County, the county I'm in, is literally running out of space because you've got so many people dying on the daily from fentanyl overdoses. And yet everybody is like, no, we just need more housing. We need more housing. We need more housing so that these people can get indoors and then they'll get off the drugs and they'll go get a job. And just a whole bunch of nonsense. So yes, I have seen that. Look for that podcast to come out very, very shortly. I was hoping to get it out today, but some of the stuff we got to edit and get it out. Let's see what else we're talking about. I'm fixing my credit and coming out of a conservative as a conservative soon. Need better conservative roommates that aren't making excuses. Okay, somebody's making a comment there. Started noticing Fox being off when Disney bought them. I think it's Rupert Murdoch owns them now. Yeah, Rupert Murdoch has owned them for a while, right? Yeah, and Samantha, your guy that did the shooting yesterday ended up taking his own life. Just terrible. Whole thing. How about all these mass shootings we've had? What's going on with that? Like 3 mass shootings in California. People just going off. I mean, it's just like, what are we doing? Or is it just that we've got media and we got jokers, like me that are just spitting this stuff out there all the time? It feels like the shootings and it feels like the violence is greater. And I know shootings are up and I know deals like what the prosecutor is talking about in King County. They're talking about also going after basically sex crimes because Seattle Police Department doesn't have a sexual assault unit right now. We don't have one. We're just not going out there. So if something happens to you on an assault basis like that in King County, sorry, they're out chasing murderers. That's horrible, horrible. Somebody has a sister, or somebody has a wife, girlfriend, mother, something like that goes on, and you basically get no response from authority. You get the response, which is, hey, we'll work on this when we can, but our bandwidth is limited. Because, we defunded the police and all that stuff. So, sexual assault. So that's one. The other one is, they're going to put together a unit like that. And then the other one is property crimes or economic crimes, I think they called it. Basically organized shoplifting. So you take the number of people being shot, who's involved with the shootings, who's doing the shootings, who are the victims of shootings. You take the number of people that are in the organized retail theft, you start arresting them, and then you start to analyze what those numbers look like. Let's just say that's going to be interesting. Let's say that. You know what I mean? And that, I believe, is why we haven't addressed these issues, because the optics in 2023 are going to be horrific. Yeah. It'll be wild. It'll be wild. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay, because it's going to unfold in front of us and we're going to watch it happen. And it'll be interesting. Let's see. What else do we got? Chemical attack from China. War is upon you. Yeah, maybe. People talk. Have you guys heard about we're 90 seconds away from, doomsday? Yeah, not good stuff, right? Not good stuff. Bad situation regardless. Yep. Yeah, and Rebecca on the recovery, 2 thumbs up. You bet, absolutely. Got a lot of people that listen to me that have been down that road. Got family members that have been down that road, and it's brutal. It really is. So I touch on those topics all the time. I touch on them from the standpoint of tough love, which is not, because that's what I believe it takes to help somebody out. It's not enabling them and excuse me. It's not enabling them and giving them a clean needle and going, here you go. Whenever you figure stuff out, get back to us and we'll help you out. You got to really work with folks to get things done. Let's see, we got Dallas is liberal, obviously some way conservative neighborhoods, but overall it's become liberal. You could also say the same about Austin down in Texas as well. You've got a red state, you got a red governor, and you've got some cities. You go a little bit north of Dallas. My brother lives in a little tiny town called Gunter. It's up by Sherman, a whole bunch of these little railroad towns, right? And there's some redneckery there. Let's just say that. There's some good old boys there that, they don't really believe in the alphabet people. And they don't believe that your sexual orientation is, determined on how you identify yourself. It's like I was watching the guy, it was some meme on, it was a meme on TikTok. I watch a lot of TikTok because I just want to see what the content creators are doing and, super fast videos. The guy's meme was, he was Australian and he was in his speedboat. He's clearly drinking a margarita, and his wife goes, "Aren't you worried about the police pulling you over?" And he goes, "No." And he points to the sticker down the side of his boat that says, "I identify as sober." And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's pretty funny. I don't really know how that would work out if, you're, 2 or 3 times over the legal drinking limit. I don't even know what it is in Australia, but I remember as a kid being in Australia, and my friend Gavin, who lives there now, has confirmed this, that you used to be able to drive around with a beer in your lap. And if a cop pulled you over and he decided that, you just been drinking a couple, you're okay. None of this breathalyzer stuff. He's just like, all right, keep it down. Do I see a 6-pack in the back? All right, you still got 4 left. You only drank 2. Carry on. No speeding. Go straight home. That's what the cops would do, right? Now, they probably ask you for your vax papers and where did you buy that beer? Did they let you in? Wild stuff in Australia, right? But wildly different when I was there as a kid in the 70s and 80s to what's going on now. Things have changed. I identify as sober. It's a good one. The other podcast that I'm going to do for sure is you got some jokester down in Oregon, some politician down in Oregon. I don't need these anymore. You got some politician down in Oregon who is outlawing the use of kangaroo it's used in leather and shoes and soccer shoes, right? Kangaroo in Australia is a rodent. It is a pest. They've got like 50 or 60 million of them. What's the population in all of Australia? Yeah, it's not a lot. So you got these rodents that are, eating out crops. They cause all kinds of damage to the environment. And the government basically just allows, the killing of them because it's a harvesting thing, right? Sustainable harvest, right? But then you got some nut job down in Oregon who's like, don't hurt the animals. Don't hurt the kangaroos. They're fuzzy and nice. Now, you've got that confused with the koala bear, which is also not a warm, fuzzy animal. They will hurt you. Kangaroos, they are the dumbest animal on the planet, in my opinion, because I've been in the outback in Australia. My mom's Australian, and one of my good friends is Australian, and he, I've been there. We've gone in the outback, just had 3 or 4 days of just, whew, yeah, that was some fun. But you're driving along, and these kangaroos will just, bounce down next to you, and then they'll hop right out in front of you, and boom. So you got to be really careful. They are the dumbest animals. They are so plentiful. They're like rabbits, and they reproduce like rabbits as well. So, some joker down in Oregon, I'm going to be doing that podcast as well, because some joker down there is like, don't hurt the kangaroos. He knows nothing about the kangaroo issue. And I've talked about it before, but apparently, Oregon, they're not worried about their homeless people dying of ODs, just like King County is kind of going, it seems like we got some issues with these overdose deaths. Not really sure where we're going to put these bodies. Could you take one home? Can you take one overnight? Can you take one home? I mean, that's literally, kind of what we're up against, which is horrible because that many people are dying. That many people, kids, brothers, sisters, parents are out there dying. In Seattle, King County in particular is just like, it's okay. It's clean needle. Go for it. Nothing but, okay, I'm not going to go there, but the nothing but the Q and S. I kind of did that joke with my dad the other day because he lives down in Oklahoma City. And I think it was in Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere. Only two things that come out of Oklahoma. and you don't look like a steer. I think that's kind of how it went. That's an abbreviated version. All right. So what else we got? You know what? I'm pretty hungry. I'm a little tired. I'm going to record some more. So I'm going to go eat some lunch. I hope you guys had a great time here. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to end, not ed. That's not really a word. Thanks so much. If you think about it, love to have you subscribe, share this content, hit the notification bell. That's also another huge one, is that a lot of subscribers, for some reason, their notifications have been taken off from this channel. And then check out reasonabletv.com. That's where the good stuff is going. And if I someday disappear, you'll want to check that out, right? Okay. Thanks again for being here. I'm going to end this one. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Got to get my cursor.